David Coons, Carrie Kirk, Janelle Seeley, Brent Speth, and Jeff Nebeker should be here shortly. So we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead you in that. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to give a prayer? Oh, GIF. That would be great. Please come up. GIF Ba has volunteered to give a prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this opportunity to come to this meeting tonight, and we are grateful for those who put in so much time to serve and to serve our community. We ask that Thou would bless this body and bless all those here that might have the spirit of cooperation, and that we might be inspired as to what will be best for our city, the different points that they have to consider, and that we can all be helpful and work together. We ask for a special blessing of inspiration at this time, that we can all be guided in these things we ask for and pray for now. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Where is she?
Oh. It's okay. He just greet the people.
I'm sorry, my animal is on the loose. Ty, do you want to grab her? Oh, here she comes. I put her in her cage and she didn't stay. Okay, thank you. Council reports. David, we'll start with you.
So last week on Just Serve, I reported just having some issues with uploading projects and getting some errors. And I should have thought of this, but Megan just contacted me and said, I set up a new account for Providence. And so I jumped right on that. She gave me the password and info, and I was able to load immediately. So that was great. We have some projects on. It took a couple of weeks to get the first ones approved. So basic like some park cleanup, some canyon cleanup. Have one on for the Cattle Coral Park, just restriping the basketball court and putting up a new net. And I'll have some other ones up that aren't approved yet, but they'll be hopefully there shortly. So it's good to get that going. And if anybody's interested, reach out to me and I'll come up with some more for you. As far as mosquito abatements, they've reported that West Nile virus is in Cache County. One of the traps tested positive in Hyde Park trap. Only once it didn't test positive after multiple tests, but I understand it's also been detected in Benson, Lewiston, Newton. A couple of horses out there tested positive. So we're just glad we're at the end of mosquito abatement season, and hopefully the bites will be winding down. So other than that, just some texts and emails from residents. Had a productive meeting with Ryan last week, and that's it for me.
Great. Carrie?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for excusing me last month. I was able to get away on a last minute, once in a lifetime experience, and thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to do that. I did listen to last month's meeting, and I was a little discouraged and disappointed in the participation of some of the council in the city celebration. And I was glad to hear, the invitation to do better. And, I've been on the council for 5 years. This may be the first time my husband has ever been at council meeting. He nods in agreement. But for the city celebration, it wasn't just me that took over a few of the different opportunities to serve, but my husband served alongside me. He set up the screen and the projector and the sound system for the movie in the park so that we didn't have to rent it and have someone do that. And he was the caller for bingo because they were looking for someone who might be fun, and he came higher on the list than me. And then he helped flip pancakes to feed a couple hundred people and insisted that some of them be whole wheat. And despite my desire to have them all just be completely white flour. Anyway,
And whole wheat was the favorite.
he claims that whole wheat was the favorite by those who have a palate for it. But the youth council were there on Friday night, and Josh and I with them till about 11, and then back again at 7 o'clock in the morning. And in the morning, Janelle was there with gloves on, picking up donkey poop. And I'm like, that's the kind of council you have, someone who's willing to do the hard stuff and to show up early and to stay late. And I'm proud to serve with her and those who are giving full effort. August has been a really busy month for the youth council, and therefore for me. We participated in the River Heights Apple Days Parade, which I think is good. Neighborhood relations, throw candy at the neighboring city's children, to the neighboring city's children. And we ran an aid station for the Top of Utah Half Marathon, and the youth were up early to do that a couple of Saturdays in a row. We did last Saturday plan our year, and we're going to slow down to one activity per month. But it's really fun to have some of the youth council here tonight, and Mayor Aldo will swear them in when we get to that item on the agenda. I also spent some time at the League of City and Town Conference for a couple of days. And I never leave those without at least some ideas to save the city money and to make the city a better place, although it's always a sacrifice to go to a conference. So those are some of the things I've been doing.
Thank you. Janelle?
Well, since last council meeting, I also went to the league conference. I felt like a lot of the information that I came out with, well, they always talk a lot about housing, but connectivity and transportation, I felt like a lot of the presentations were actually presented by the Cache Metropolitan, the CMPO, and a lot of local agencies. So that was nice to have some local perspective on statewide issues. So I enjoyed that and learned a lot of things. This week I went to the Legislative Policy Committee meeting, which is, they're basically trying to keep up with the Commission on Housing Affordability and the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and try to figure out what kind of legislation's coming down the line as we go into the legislative session in January. And one of the things they're really trying to focus on and emphasize from the city's point of view is that we have a lot of approved housing stock, and we need to let the market flesh it out, get it built, and then kind of see, where the needs are from there, and hopefully try to get that message to our legislators that we have to see what actually works before we make more policy and more laws specifically around housing. But they talked a lot about financing tools, and home ownership, trying to emphasize first-time home buyers and how to facilitate that. So there's a lot of discussion around that. I've spent a lot of time talking with residents in the downtown area specifically about sidewalks and plans, and we've talked about a lot of different ideas, and I've wrestled with a lot of that information. I feel like I have some good ideas and suggestions to go forward with that when we get to that later on. And next week I have a meeting in Lehigh with all the cities that have municipal fiber to just kind of share best practices and work on some legislation things there as well. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you. Brent?
Well, I too attended the league meetings in Salt Lake, and again, they were very informative. It always seems like you come away, I like was said, with ideas to save the city money. One of the things I noticed, there was a lot of, at least in my perspective, a lot of energy put into the emotional stability of those people who serve in the community and serve the community. There's lots of challenges. It's hard work. Those that serve in many legislative positions, as well as city councils, as well as staff, there's a lot of challenges there, and I picked up on that. I also attended a meeting talking about where a major road runs through your community, and it was presented by Logan City. And I enjoyed that, and I thought of our community where we're starting now to move over to the west side of the highway. And that part of that is on the agenda tonight. How do we maintain connectivity to the east side? How do we make that work for our community? Because if we don't handle it correctly, roads can divide us, or roads can help us build a community. They're necessary. And so I really enjoyed that presentation by Logan, and it was neat because we have the opportunity to be able to work closely with them because they are such a neighbor to us. I also attended via Zoom the emergency preparedness meeting put on by the Cache County, and listened to the upcoming concerns and needs and happenings with emergency preparedness. I also have been concerned about 100 East. There's been a lot of comments made, a lot of discussion. Ryan and I have visited the site. We have measured. We have looked at it. And so we have spent some time with 100 East as well. And so it's not something, as a councilman, you want to have happen to divide your city. I did not run to divide our community. I ran for council position to strengthen, to help, to improve, to make our city a better place. And it's concerning to me, and so that's weighed heavy on me for, well, ever since this came up and has started moving forward. It's not something that I take very lightly. And so I have worked on it. I have really been concerned about it. That's my council report.
Thank you. Jeff?
I don't have anything other than a lot of communication with citizens about the sidewalk situation and thinking about solutions, and we can talk about that later. So.
I've been busy as well this month. I'm the chair of the CMPO, which is the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we've had several meetings planning our next upcoming meeting. COG, I'm also a member of the COG, Council of Governments, and we have our funding cycle coming up to fund road projects. I'm a little concerned that we might not get what we're asking for, but we're going to give it the old college try. I've met with the chamber. I'm chair of the conservation board for the state of Utah, and I spent 2 days out doing site visits of places that people want to conserve. One of them is here in Cache Valley. It is Joe Furman's place, just on the highway. I'm also a part of the UDOT committee, the JPAC committee, and that meets once every couple of months. I was at the League of Cities and Towns. Again, I'm grateful for an organization that will keep track of the legislature and all of the different laws that are trying to be passed that that impact the city. Takes it out of our hands and makes the rules for us, and we want to make sure that we're able to stay in control and not be treated like one size fits all. And the legislative policy committee is part of that, which I also attend, to make sure again that we're watching what the legislature is doing and making sure that we're not being asked to do things that are not in our wheelhouse, or that things are being taken out of our wheelhouse. Just want everyone to know that if you're involved in any kind of a manufacturing business, the Northern Utah Manufacturing Excellence Committee of the Chamber is having a conference. It will be on October 9th. It's just half a day, but there are some incredible opportunities to learn more about just-in-time and quality control and all of the things that are important for manufacturing businesses. They do a fun thing where they have everybody change the tires on a car all at once, and you get timed, so you try to be the winning group. So anyway, if anyone's involved in manufacturing, that's a good thing to go to. So that being said, and our council reports being made, we'll move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes from August 21st, 2024. And I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 21st, 2024.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. David, second to approve the minutes. Any discussion?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Great. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with one abstention. This is a part of the meeting. If you have a comment on an issue that is within our jurisdiction, now is the time. If you would like to come forward, you'll need to state your name. Please keep your comments brief. And we don't take action at this point in time for comments, but we will allow you to comment. So, any comments? Al?
Hanson, I live here in Providence. Everybody knows me here. Just wanted to make you aware, I was told just recently that they're still having vandalism problems on the equipment up at the disc golf course. Was vandalized again. The guy, Ted, the guy that kind of takes care of that, has repainted benches up there twice because of that. He says,
Vandalism is spray painting? Vandalism is spray painting?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
yeah, graffiti. He says, I'm not painting them again. He says, I'm tired of putting up with this. Anyway, just wanted to make you aware of that it's still going on. The other thing, it was discussed in council meeting some time back about getting cameras up in that area, up around Vons Park and on the golf course and stuff. Where does that stand at this point? Is that still?
We're working on it.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
The one camera that's up there, does it function? Isn't there a camera in the parking lot up there somewhere?
There is. It functions most of the time.
Does it record? Can you pull information off of it?
Sometimes we can. It's off and on, but we are working on our stuff. Actually, some of the cameras should start to get installed next week.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, just wanted to make you aware.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close. Oh, Scarlett, do we have anything on the website?
We had one comment that came in, but it's for item number 10.
Okay. Any new information?
I checked that 5 minutes before I came in. So.
Okay, all right. We'll go with there's nothing else. So we'll close that portion of the meeting.
Mayor, may I make a comment about cameras? At my storage sheds, I use trail cams, and they are very slick, very easy, just like you hunt for deer. And they are wonderful. Just a thought.
These new cameras we're going to get will be wonderful. So thank you. So we'll go to public hearings. Says presentations, public hearings. Item number 2, swearing in of youth council. Carrie, do you want to say anything to get started? on
Yeah. So I just appreciate the youth council being here, and we haven't come to a city council meeting for a couple of years. And I want to read to everyone the mission statement of the youth council, and their swearing in is going to kind of mirror this youth statement. And it's part of the reason why we choose to have them sworn in at city council meeting. Our mission statement is to provide opportunities for youth to develop mature citizenship, leadership, a sense of personal achievement, community service, and understanding of government. And so I just think that they're just such a fantastic cohort of youth. And I wanted them to come to a city council meeting, even just for a few minutes, and see what we do and what they can do to be an active member of their community, and that you can always come and comment, and it doesn't matter your age. It was a group of youth that made it happen, that we have a skate park. People are wondering why certain things happen in certain order, and it's because citizens get involved. They seek grants, they get it on master plans, and they can see things happen. And these youth are going to make a great impact in society in the future. We have a stack of certificates, and the youth have been polling the names of people that are here, so the mayor can read them and bring them up and swear them in.
Yeah.
Okay, they have the certificates.
So the youth
People are
council, I'd like you to come up and line up along the dais here.
Okay, and these are the ones that are here. Okay.
Well, we need to
Yeah, I'm
look at these as well.
pretty sure those aren't here.
Okay, all along the front.
Oh, Maddie's here. You can hand that to the mayor. Oh, we need more voice bands.
Shorter ones in front, taller ones in back. Come. Can make room. We are so proud to have you serving our city. We're glad that you have come and volunteered and said you want to do this, and you can't imagine how much help it is for us to have you at our celebrations and the things that we do in the city, to have volunteers. And I hope all of you will maintain that throughout your lives, because we can't pay everybody to do everything, and so volunteers are very important to us. I'm going to read this. I'm going to say I, and you repeat I and say your name, and then I'll read part of it, and then you just repeat after me. So hold your right hand up. Okay, I. Say your name. Do solemnly swear to uphold the laws of the City of Providence and follow the rules as set forth for the Providence Youth Council. I will work to support the citizens of Providence through community service. I will strive to learn government policies and procedures which will help me have fun and develop a mature citizenship, leadership, and have a sense of personal achievement. Thank you all for your service. And I'll read your name. So Madeline Nazer. Thank you. Oh, did somebody get a picture? Yeah. Okay. All right. Madeline Pate. Aaliyah Warage. Dakota Davis. Thank you. Rachel Lapp. Mia Seeley. Got an upside down one here. Elizabeth Sharp. Thank you. Liv Stolworthy. Thank you. Alice Kirk. Boston Black. Danielle Harris. Sydney Simon. Claire Martin. Maylee Hathaway. Claire Kemp. Andrew Martin. Camilla Watkins. Oh, tell me your name. Lexi.
I'm gonna have to make one for you. I'm so sorry. Is it on?
Up on the dice.
Lexi, right here at the top. So glad you're here.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for volunteering. And I encourage you to continue to stay active because it's important to have volunteers. Thank you.
So youth council and parents, you're welcome to stay and listen a little longer. It's not rude to leave a city council meeting. Most people do at some point. So you can stay, you can go. We are grateful for your service.
Like mass exodus.
It is cold up here. Okay, we will close that portion of the meeting. Thank you all. Item number 3 is Diaper Need Awareness Week proclamation. Providence City Council will proclaim September 23rd through the 29th as Diaper Needs Awareness Week. And Ted Chalfant is here. He's going to give us a little bit of information about this, and we will adopt the proclamation. So come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Alder and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about an issue that is affecting families all across our state and across the nation, diaper need. As many of you know, diaper need is the lack of sufficient supply of diapers to keep an infant or toddler clean, dry, and healthy. Here in Utah, this is a growing concern that we at Little Lambs Foundation for Kids are working hard to address. Let me share some startling facts about diaper need here in our community. In Utah, 1 in 2 families struggle to afford clean diapers for their babies. That means thousands of children are at risk of facing serious health problems like diaper rash, infections, and even staph due to prolonged exposure to soiled diapers. Nationwide, an average supply of diapers costs families between $80 to $100 per month. Unfortunately, none of our federal assistance programs such as WIC or SNAP cover the cost of diapers. Only a small portion of TAMF, which is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, can be used for this purpose. But as you can imagine, with rent, mortgages, utility, and other expenses, there are often little left to spend on diapers. In Utah, 33% of children under the age of 3 live in families that are making less than 200% of the federal poverty level, putting them at an even greater risk of diaper need. Additionally, parents without access to diapers often miss work or school because of child care facilities require families to supply diapers. Missing work only makes it harder for parents to get back on their feet and provide for their children. At Little Lambs Foundation for Kids, we serve over 59,000 individuals throughout the state of Utah, and we are proud to operate the only direct service diaper bank in the state. We're very fortunate here in our valley. But we can't do it alone. Our ability to provide these essential items depends on partnerships with local communities, businesses, and supporters like you. We distribute tens of thousands of diapers each month to our community members, and that need is growing. This issue is particularly timely, as Diaper Need Awareness Week is quickly approaching, which is next week, September 23rd through the 29th. This week is a critical time for us to raise awareness and bring attention to this growing issue. By supporting programs that provide diapers and advocating for policy changes that addresses this need, we can help families thrive and ensure that every baby in Utah has a clean diaper. Together, we can make a meaningful difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. When Ted and I visited, he shared with me that in Providence, we have 20 families who are taking advantage of having diapers. And I've been there when they're giving out diapers and other things that babies need. And it's just a steady stream of cars they drive up, someone takes the diapers, and the diapers that they're giving them are specific to that family. And so it's really kind of heart-wrenching to see how many people need that.
Well, we are very grateful for your support and for each one of the community members and the council members of Providence that have made it possible for us to continue our program. We're currently serving over close to 600 families every single month locally with diapers, wipes, hygiene, formula, baby food. Each one of our families is income verified. They have to qualify for our program. They're able to come once a month. And, you know, having the support of amazing people and businesses and community members makes it possible. So thank you very much for your support.
Thanks, Ted. Okay, we'll close that. Item number 4 is PCC 1-4-1 and 1-4-2 amendments for public hearing. The Providence City Council will hold a public hearing to take comments and questions regarding the request to amend Providence City Codes 1-4-1 and 1-4-2. Amendments seek to clarify the general penalty and offense designation. This is something that we've not kept up with the state codes that are there, and this is just something that we are trying to rectify.
Yeah, the county has been the one issuing citations, so they've kind of kept up. But because we're bringing some of that citation in-house, we'll need to update our list of what we can give a citation for as an entity. It doesn't add any citations. It doesn't change the wording or anything on the violations. It's still a nuisance. Is still a nuisance. Is still a nuisance. It was before. It is now. So that's not what this is. This is giving a tool to our hired part-time code enforcement officer, so that they can handle that. What's been asked of them. This is the tool for them to do their job. So they've worked really hard. We've worked with our prosecutor. Ty's done a lot of work, and Scarlett's done a lot of work on this, and Mary, our code enforcement's done a lot of work. So that's what this is. It really is just adding putting the tool in the toolbox. The violations are still the same. So
great. Anyone here to speak about that?
Dallin Briggs, Providence City. I would actually, I've tried to look on the Providence City to see what violations and everything has come from the county, if that is what it is currently. How many violations are being pushed through currently? My concern that I have reading Utah state law and everything says that the city may, is the wording, they may, here, I can read the wording right here. The governing Utah State Code 103702 is what it's referencing, and what you referenced in yours goes back to the governing body may pass any ordinance to regulate, require, prohibit, govern, control, or supervise any activity, business conduct, or condition authorizing by this act or other provision of law. My question is, to what point, why are we bringing this and changing our wording to be criminal? Why are we adding more legislation, or I shouldn't say legislation, why are we adding more governing parties that any citation we are now being able to charge criminally? What advantageous action is that creating?
So I'll answer that if that's all right, Mayor.
Please.
At that point, this isn't changing any of those pieces of the puzzle. Why I mentioned the county, because the county is our hired enforcement agency. So they have been citing the same citations. So this isn't adding or making anything criminal or that isn't criminal. The same penalty. What this is if you can imagine a code of lists of violations that we have to match up to, so that it's the same. When the judge gets that and says, oh, hey, this is 10, 4, 7, 5, whatever the number, we're adding to that table. The county's already done that for their violations. We're saying, hey, you know what, if we're going to have our own ability to cite some violations with our own officer or our own person, we're just making consistency between state, county, and us. State and county have already been there. We're just adding our own consistency into that. So it's not actually making anything, this ordinance isn't making anything. If it's already a criminal action, that's already in the code. That's already been done. That's not what this is doing.
So my question is the point to create a position that currently, are we sub-hiring out the county sheriff's office or whatnot to fill additional needs, or are we trying to impose additional laws within our within the city Providence?
The same laws. We're bringing in. We've brought in a part-time staff member to handle hours specifically, rather than be an extension of the county on everything. There is a few that it's nice for us to be able to handle, because at this point, what we do is we have a warning, and then we refer off, and they make the citation. This would allow us to be able to have a warning, and a citation.
My question is, where's the documentation saying that those regulations, those warnings, are they increasing? By what percentage? You've issued so many warnings, and now you're wanting to push it to be a criminal action. Or
It already exists.
We're not changing that.
County level.
Not county level. Well, so my question is within the city limits, are we having more and more citations given? At what rate is that increasing? Do we know?
I think it's that we're saving our law enforcement hours for things that are law enforcement specific, like code violations and other things like that, are something that a code enforcement officer can do. So our law enforcement hours are spent on things that only law enforcement can do. If that's my understanding.
Okay.
Ultimately, cost savings as well, responsive and cost savings as well, because we'll be able to have paying that at our rate rather than the county's full-time benefited rate. We're having a part-time staff that can do a piece of that puzzle.
Okay. My only concern is that, are we trying to add more and more layers within our own things that have been established that's already working, but are we trying to add more violations for things that it's adding more government or adding more ability to find and criminal charges to, for example, of if someone doesn't mow their lawn, and that's a citation. Citation becomes now a Class B misdemeanor because you don't mow your lawn. Now, is that just or whatnot? Maybe on the county side or different things, and within city limits. I just want to say, before quick to action, has everything been thought through of that? Can we leave where it is? Are we still code compliant within state law? And I believe, to my understanding, we are, but I am not a lawyer either. That's my only comment that you
Thank
take
you.
into consideration.
Anyone else? Okay. Ty, is there anything on the website about this?
No, nothing came in. No.
Okay. We'll close that portion of the meeting and, or that item, and we'll go to the next. Ordinance 17-2024, Renner Connect rezone. Providence City Council review, discuss, and may
Mayor,
take. Oh,
just
sorry.
it's you had your public hearing on it.
Oh, that's right.
Now's your discussion.
I'm sorry.
And
Bam. Good thing I have Ryan. Keep me on track. Okay, so we're going to take action on that. We closed the public hearing. Now we're going to take action on the ordinance amendments. So we'll review, discuss, and may take action on the ordinance that seek to amend City Code 1-4-1 and 1-4-2. So, discussion, questions. That's okay if you don't have any. We'll just.
Yeah, well, I just want to say in response to the public comment that, you know, I'm not a big government person either, and I really actually don't think anyone on the council is. We just want to create consistency and the ability to enforce the laws that we have in place. And so, and we're not rushing into this. Like it's been read and considered and contemplated and compared. And so while I appreciate small government and hate that the state passes 500 new laws every time they're in session, this needs to happen so that we can enforce what we have in place.
Okay.
Scarlett
Mayor?
has a comment.
Scarlett.
I just wanted to comment too. Our city attorney that does the justice court for us, Kelly Smith, was very much involved in this. So we did have it reviewed by our city attorney, and we actually are, we actually haven't, the infraction option has been in our ordinance for a long time, but it's not really been called out the way it is now. So as instead of making things more criminal, we actually are pushing more for the infraction side of things on the first offense instead of a first offense being a Class B or a Class C. So we were actually trying to do a little bit the opposite. We were trying to make it more of a community type violation rather than a criminal penalty. So that's why the infraction is in there. But and it was our city attorney that felt like we needed to clarify. We had in what they call the state master offense or the shared master offense table, we kind of had generic titles, and he felt like we needed to put the actual code that we're in that would help the not only the officers but the attorneys as well. And so we didn't, it looks like we added a whole bunch, but we really didn't add anything. We just went through all the call outs in the code and made sure that they had the correct citation numbers on that chart rather than kind of a generic title for each thing. So that we didn't add anything we don't already have, but it does appear that we did.
Okay. Thank you. Questions?
No, go ahead.
I'll entertain a motion if you're ready to. Brent?
I'd just like to make the following comment. When I worked for Logan Fire Department, part of the program was to control weeds on vacant lots. Now, weeds on vacant lots, when it dries to this into later summer, becomes not only a nuisance, but it becomes a problem if a fire should start and in affecting the surrounding homes and buildings. And when we came to Providence to attempt to get people to comply, cutting a perimeter cut around their property, we had to use the fire code to do that. And it was sometimes up to Providence City to enforce that. And so it became a challenge to get these people to comply with it. And this, in my opinion, gives our code enforcement person the ability to move forward, to be able to assist in what needs to be done to bring about compliance. Because if we don't get compliance on some of these things when a fire starts, then we didn't do our job. So it is important to have the ability to write citations and move forward after you have attempted to do all you can to get people to comply.
Thank you.
I can make a motion.
Okay, please.
I move that we approve item number 5, ordinance 18-2024 amendments to PCC 1-4-1 and 1-4-2.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Brent, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now let's go to item number 6. Ordinance 17-2024 Renter Connect rezone. Providence City Council will review, discuss, and may take action on an ordinance that rezone parcel 02-088-0010, 02088-0015, and 02-0900001. Parcels are located in the area of 5 South Highway 165 in Providence. The Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding this rezone on August 28th, which we've all watched. And Scarlett, do you want to bring us up to speed? And I think you need to hold your mic maybe out from your mouth. Tilt it up like this.
This.
Yeah.
Okay. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this, and they did make a recommendation. The applicant, Kent Dunkley, is here to represent the applicant. They are asking for this piece. There's 3 pieces involved, as the mayor read. 2 pieces front State Road 165. 1 piece is just to the west of those 2, and so it's between the east border of Blackhawk, which is also the east border of Logan City in that area, and then it's our west border. So the applicant is asking that the 2 pieces, that front Highway 165 be zoned commercial highway. Commercial highway is a zone that is based to encourage sales tax producing businesses. 88%, roughly 88% of the business needs to be sales tax producing in those zones. And then the west portion would be our M12 or M18, which is multifamily, maximum of 18 units per acre. The staff report was reviewed. The staff report was reviewed during the during the Planning Commission meeting. We do follow the findings of fact. We used the Utah Code. We use Providence City Code. We look at our general plan, our transportation plan, our master plans. We make sure that we are following along with it. That being said, this is in an area that's a bit of a challenge for sewer. But we've recognized that. We're working on that. And the applicant, of course, as they come in to do the development, they will have to make necessary improvements to have the proper infrastructure there to serve whatever buildings or businesses that they bring. So that will be taken care of as part of the subdivision process or as part of the commercial site plan process, depending how this ends up being divided out or developed. If it's one owner that leases things out, then we do it through the site plan process on the commercial side. On the townhome side or the multifamily side, we will do that using the design standards in our city code for single family attached to multifamily homes. So there will be many more discussions before you actually see buildings.
Okay. Kent, would you like to say anything? Okay. As we look at these three pieces, they are not on our transportation master plan, but it's key if we're going to put multifamily homes in there that there are entrances and exits, and it's not going to all go out onto the highway. And so I think we need to look at perhaps putting a caveat in there that when that is developed, if we change the zoning tonight, as was recommended, that we require that there is connectivity onto anything other than the highway.
I agree with you, Mayor. We need to have connectivity, especially if possible, if for the furthest west lot, that's residential. That'll be where we'll probably have higher density population, people needing access to roads. Is there a possibility, and I would like to recommend not only do we go south, but we go north and we go east. And I don't know, have you had any discussions with Logan City about the possibility of going north out to 100 North? I would like to see that a possibility explored, if that could possibly happen somewhere, maybe along the west side of the Les Schwab tire shop or somewhere in there. I know there's a hotel planned to go in there, but certainly it would be to great advantage to have some access to that north, 1200 north or 1200 south or 100 north in Providence. It would definitely be advantageous, and definitely connectivity to the Alder property and connectivity to the highway. I don't know how many accesses were going to be allowed on the highway. I know we'd probably get one, but I don't know how many.
Just one.
Just one.
It will be, and that's been determined by 100 South.
Yeah.
So they will have to line up their access to be across from 100 South. At least the way, and I doubt that would change, but the way that our current, I just went blank on the name of that report. The corridor agreement. Yes, thank you. The way our current corridor agreement is, we would only get that 100 South.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yes, access.
So that, I potentially, how many units do you think would possibly go back in there? 18 per acre? What is do you have a possible guess what it might be? So it's just way out, way too preliminary yet. But you could know that there would be quite a few people needing access in and out of that property if you have residential as well as commercial. So I'd really like to see us explore some a caveat or put a stipulation to explore more access, especially to that back property.
We did send letters to Logan City Planning indicating that we do want an access there, and their response was kind of like, we already sold it and it's already been approved. And there is not an access there. So,
oh, sorry.
we really need to push for that, because UDOT's going to give you one access through First North, and that's not enough. Or excuse me, First South. So, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm wondering if the council could consider for approval tonight the rezone of the commercial highway district and table the
high density housing.
Yeah, it's
Or
18
the
RM 18, and table that and have the planning commission look at that RM 18 zone and make sure that it's buttoned up just the way we'd like to see it before we approve that portion of the zone. And I think if we separate them, we might not be such a cloudy decision. Honestly, my formula for 99.9% approval is a thumbs up from the planning commission, and it's on the master plan. So it seems like this would just be like automatic approval, but where it's on the west side of the highway, where it's not on our plans, I feel like it's like the wild, wild west. And I want to just make sure that we don't approve too quickly. And if we could just do a portion and make sure everything else is in place, that's what I would propose looking at doing tonight.
Can I make a comment here?
Yes, you may comment.
When you mentioned about Logan City, where there's the connectivity, that was something that we discussed down in Salt Lake earlier this month, particularly with Cache Valley, because, you go up and down the Wasatch Front, you have I-15, which is something that connects through multiple communities, and it's an established corridor. And I feel like we have to almost fight for our connections between cities. Like it's a really arduous process to do those things. So maybe the CMPO can get involved as a third party to create a corridor agreement between Logan City and Providence. And I did talk to the gentleman down there. I can't think of his name at this minute, but that's in charge of the CMPO. He works there.
Oh, Jeff Gilbert.
Yeah, Jeff Gilbert. About doing similar things in other places of the city between River Heights and Providence and Millville, and establishing those corridors, through the county roads as changes are being suggested, that those corridors be protected and maintained, because we live and die on the grid system. Everything funnels into Main Street. And if we don't have those connections, we're just setting ourselves up for gridlock, pain, suffering.
Well,
long drives down Main Street.
We don't have I-15, but we have I-Main Street.
I-Main Street, yeah. We have I-Main
Because
Street.
all the traffic goes on Main Street or 10th West.
Yeah.
But we are busy, and we do have a highway that goes through the middle of our cities. And 165, if you've ever sat out there and watched, there's a lot of traffic on 165.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully the CMPO could help us accomplish that. But I agree with Carrie. I think that the RM18 really should be scrutinized again by the Planning Commission, because as I listened to their comments, we had our first RM18 project go through just right behind me on Gateway Drive. And we learned from that, and we made some adjustments to our design standard and our open space requirements. But I think the intent for that was livability of the residents who live there. And so if all of our open space requirement is being fulfilled by, wetlands, I don't know that that contributes to livability for the residents that would live in those multifamily homes. And so I just think the Planning Commission should maybe just visit the design standard on that And we really should have a connectivity plan in place, because if there's no connections drawn on the master plan or the transportation master plan, we can't enforce that when the development agreements come in. And so whether that's we adopt a connectivity protocol, I know the Wasatch Front Regional Council has a connectivity protocol. They don't actually lay out the roads exactly, but they actually have to design to a score level within their guideline, which is also something we can enforce if we haven't adopted it. So we either send it to the Planning Commission and have them come up with a connectivity plan for the west side before we approve this, or we, adopt some type of standard similar to what the Wasatch Regional Council has come up with. We have to put it in place. Otherwise, there's no legal ability to enforce that.
There are no teeth in it.
We actually use the fire code because they have connectivity within the fire code for residential properties, and it depends on the type of properties. So we rely on that quite heavily, on the number of units that can be put in, on how many accesses it needs to be. In the single family residential area, it's 30 units, and then you have to have a second outlet for it. And it even tells you how far they have to be spaced and things like that. So we do have the fire code that we would, I'm not saying that I don't agree with what you're saying, but we do have the fire code in place, and that's what we've utilized to this point to make sure that we have adequate accesses for residential properties. The multifamily, you can have more units than that, than the 30. I can't remember what it is for sure, but you can have more units than that for the 30. But we went through that quite extensively with the ones that aren't being built yet, but the ones that are over here north of where the theater is, on access and how to get them in and out of there.
Well, not only do we have issues with fire, but coming out on Highway 165 is a daunting task. and we want to get away from that. So we want to make sure that there are ways for people to get to either end of that without having to go out on 165.
I know, Brent, when we had that safety presentation and they showed us where most of our accidents were, it is on 165 at those intersections coming on 300 South, 200, 100 North. That is where we get most of our traffic accidents. And so
that's why we got the turning lights so quickly.
Right. We can't
down there
put everybody in pulling onto 165. I know the speed limit does drop there from, between 2600 in Nibley and when you come into 300 South, but it's just not a really safe place to pull onto the road.
Right.
Unless you're turning right only.
Our access to the fire department is basically Station 72, which is down west by the golf course. And their access to Providence comes up and comes around Walmart and comes up into Providence. If they have to come up to Highway 165, make a right-hand turn, and then go over and on to the 100 South, make a right turn, go down through the commercial subdivision to get to our residential housing if there's an issue, that seems like very cumbersome and not efficient planning. So I think Logan City ought to really get where they are contracted by us, ought to look at providing better access to our residential properties through giving us a right-of-way into that property from off of the street where they're going to be coming up on 1200.
Problem is it's UDOT. It's not Logan. It's UDOT.
Other than First North or 12th South is
That's what I'm referring to, is give us access off of 100 North or 12 South. That's not UDOT, is it?
No, 165 is UDOT though.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They're not going to give us another access there. So we need the access off of 12 South by the Walmart entrance or somewhere in that area.
Right.
So that our fire department doesn't have to access 165, travel on 165, and then re-enter the property. Yeah, I mean, that just seems very cumbersome and inefficient.
Unsafe.
and
Yeah.
safe, yeah.
So is it reasonable to approve the commercial highway district tonight without the connectivity plan and table the other, or do we need to wait on the whole thing?
I have just a couple of thoughts on that. One, when I think we have a connectivity, at least we have one. The back piece doesn't connect to the highway at this point. But just a couple of clarifying to Carrie what you're asking. There's a few ways we could do it. We can take it back to the planning commission and have them do a plan, or could the developer or the landowner come with letters of intent that he has the ability and access from the development on the north and the south, that he has the ability to go through them. Now, it's not necessarily planned, but at least that connectivity from those property owners have been agreed to, so that he knows that he can make the connections rather than the planning commission specifically draw where that connection is. I'm just kind of curious how much we want them to go back. And then the other point is if we deny it, then that drops it off and we can have the planning commission review. But if it's postponed, it will stay under the same rules it's been applied under. So just a kind of technical clarification. If you just say, oh, we're going to pass it back into the same application, then at that point the same rules stay in place that are there now. So if you're changing the zoning of the RM18 because they've already got an application under that, you reject this one in order to change.
So
And
you're
does
saying that we
apply
deny it?
the same with the transportation master plan and any type of connectivity standard?
It's generally the application which you come in under is the requirement you fit. So that's why if you have a condition that you say, well, we're going to have a condition that you connect north and south and to the east, or at least go out, see if you can acquire that connectivity, so they have some connectivity to your property. At this point, as agriculture is not as critical what that connectivity is, but as it changes, that's where, as you've talked about, that connectivity becomes important. But I'm just offering something that says, hey, maybe that developer can come back with letters that say, hey, adjacent property owner, you've agreed that you'll let me connect through your property. We'll work out the detail of that connection, but that connection is solid enough that you can approve that. Maybe that gives them time. If you table it, maybe that gives them time to come back, look at that connectivity and propose something so they can make that change. Anyway, just as questions and thoughts.
I don't know if you've been up to Smithfield lately and see what they've done to their commercial property on the south end of town. But UDOT has gone in and put a concrete barrier with posts up. This divided all the way from, the Chevron on the north to the light on the south.
It's that whole block.
That whole area, and you cannot cross it. And I would think we may have a concern, and we need to possibly plan for that, because we have seen it happen now. UDOT is probably going to do the same thing if we get traffic trying to cross from one side to the other. We will possibly have a light in the middle, but that connectivity might need to feed the entire commercial front once you get off the street and through that area. Now, I'm not trying to design the property, but we've also got to be able to have, if the front gets sold without conditions, how's the back going to get access? And so there's just some things. I don't know if we need to put the conditions on, or if we're premature in approving it. I don't know that.
I don't know. Can we put conditions on a rezone? Or we just approve it or deny it?
Well, a rezone is, as I understand, a rezone is a discretionary item of the council. And I think you can add conditions, but I'll double check to the other two, your thoughts.
Have to be very careful on the conditions. But health, safety, have to be very careful on the conditions, but health, safety, We can do a lot of things with health, safety. I think one of the biggest challenges that you have down there to put a frontage road or something, that was not the intent. The intent was that all the properties would be serviced, but they would be serviced privately through private accesses on that west side, similar to how when you go from 1200 north to 1400 north in Logan, you go through private parking lots. It feels like a road, but it's really a private parking lot you're going through. Because if you put a road through there, that was one of the reasons why that part was not planned out with actual streets. We knew what UDOT was going to tell us as far as access into it, that you would get one at 100 South, the one where Members First is, that's across from Macy's or however that worked out, so that we avoided the raised median that Brent was talking about. We knew that, but if you want to put a road through there, we can do that, but that will definitely impact what type of commercial development can go there.
Oh, I'm not trying to design it. I just am thinking out loud. Having reasonable access on that property. I'm not trying to design it. That's not my intent. I guess my question is, can we put a condition to anything? I mean, some properties in Logan have lot-to-lot access and some don't.
Yes, our commercial codes wants them to be shared accesses. It's really difficult though with property, but in our commercial portion of the site, we ask them to make sure that they can connect, so that and on the west side they'll have to, because they're limited to the highway accesses. It's not like they can just come out every 100 feet like they can in a residential area. So there will have to be some cooperation between property owners down there in order to have adequate access. And I think since it's a life safety issue, you could say that there has to be adequate access to provide for residential property or commercial property, whichever you choose to do, however you choose to do it. I think you could utilize that as a condition.
Or can we rezone? And then planning and zoning, do they have any way of putting a stop on things till connectivity is resolved?
So at that point, the council rezone is a discretionary, but once you get to planning commission, it follows and checks the box of the rules. The discretion isn't there. This would be the last point of kind of discretion. That's not what planning commission would be doing. No.
Be better to put conditions on connectivity now, do you think, or do you think it would be better to have cooperation between owners sort of set up in advance and then come back and look at that?
Where it's private property, that's difficult for us to say. I mean, definitely those properties will have to work together for the sake of all the properties. They'll have to work together. So, but how we go about making that happen is a little tricky. We will have to rely on our codes that require adequate fire accesses, adequate emergency vehicle accesses, adequate traffic control. We'll have to rely on those codes, but it's really hard when you're looking at open property. We could say we definitely have an access to the south. We thought we had an access to the north, and then Logan didn't uphold their end of the bargain, in all honesty. And so that doesn't appear to be there, but it may if somebody approached them. But it's got to be private to private at this point, unless the city's actually thinking of going in and purchasing access. which is, I guess, something you could consider, but the property owners should be able to get together and work that out.
I think I think you could pass that on to the property owner. I think the planning commission is not going to be able to solve all of that and to push that to the planning, to push that to the owner to see and resolve that. So if you make the condition now, if you're ready to have that and make the condition now, or if you ask them for more due diligence and come back with a plan of how that, I mean, that back piece, all of it really, but especially the back piece, that sewer has to go south. That connection has to go south. In order for them to develop that property, they got to go south. They've got to have that ability, and they'll need to work that out with the adjacent property owner, at least to the south. The north isn't a water or sewer or infrastructure, but a connectivity issue. As a city, we've gone and said, hey, you know what, Logan, you ought to allow this. We've talked to the owner of the property and said, hey, you know, you ought to make sure you allow connectivity. But this is your chance probably to make a requirement on the property owner. So if I had a recommendation, I guess I'd say I'd rezone the front too, as you've kind of talked, and the back one, I'd give him a chance to go and see if he can work out a connectivity and come back. And if he can, then I'd probably approve it. But I don't get a vote. So
Yeah.
there's a recommendation for you.
Can I make a motion and then we can discuss it as a motion?
Yes.
So I would like to make the motion. I got to pull up the numbers, I guess. That we approve, well, can I say the front two lots that have been requested for,
So that's 02-088-0010
you can see better than me.
and
Oh,
02.
got it right there. Oh, okay. I'll just say, I'm not going to say the lot numbers. The front two that have been
15.
requested for commercial,
D is the other one.
that
Okay.
we approve those and table the request for the multifamily upon, and the developer can bring it back upon plans for connectivity.
Okay. We have a motion on the table for 02-088-0015 and 02-090-0001.
I think Mr. Dunkley has a comment if you'll allow.
Okay.
Just some information that I have. The interconnectivity, the developer that's working on the property to the south has come to me and told me that they're planning a road going from 1700 south through this property. I haven't seen any plans. I don't know that, but this is what's been told to me. It's also interesting to me about the commercial activity and the commercial rezone. I don't see a problem with that, but we don't have any idea what the density is of the commercial and how many cars that's going to put on the highway. But we seem to be concerned about the multifamily, not the density in commercial. Interesting. Interconnectivity, we agree to. I think that's very important, and I think all the towns in the valley are adhering to that. We did have a unanimous approval from the Planning Commission, and what we've thought about during this whole process is that we've been told years ago that there would be a stoplight on 100 South and Highway 165 at some point in time, that UDOT had already approved that. I live on 100 South. I choose not to go to the highway without a stoplight right now. And as the mayor has said before, she doesn't like crossing down on 1700 South. I don't know if you've changed or not, but we have to be very cautious.
Well, when we
There-
didn't have a light there, that was a problem.
There is a stoplight, and we still choose not to go right there. So we understand that there's a problem. The city wants sales tax. They want to rezone. You want to keep what's there as highway commercial to bring in sales tax. It's got to work for everybody. We don't know what it's going to be. There are 3 parcels there that we want to rezone without a master plan, without a plan in hand, really. We're just asking for a rezone at this point.
And I feel like that's what's dangerous, is that we don't have a master plan.
Usually isn't a plan.
Um,
I mean, yeah.
Master
yeah,
plan.
that the city doesn't. And so, so I feel like it's either table it all or table a portion of it.
And I think we table it all because I don't have any problems in the future coming back and getting a rezone for highway commercial for the 2 front parcels. But I think we need to look at it as one piece because it's the same owner and I'm representing them. So I would say table it for 30 days if that's fine, but it's a private property issue. I don't know if we can go to the landowner to the south and if they will give us some kind of permission for interconnectivity. That's something I don't know where their development is.
Sounds like we might be a little premature. Maybe there's a few other exploratory items that ought to be looked at. Maybe give us a little better feel for what might be out there. Talking with the owner on the south, maybe a little more exploring with Logan City. I don't know. I just wonder if we're not just a little bit premature. I have no problem myself tabling it for at least 30 days and let's see what we can do.
There is one possibility on the very south end of the Watkins printing property. There's a vacant piece of land there that might work for an access road. But again, that's another property owner and we would have to negotiate with them, which we can have discussion with them in the next 30 days.
Well, and quite frankly, I'm not opposed. Like I said, this is like a 99.9% approval.
I don't like that number.
Just like, I think my formula is if it's yes from, the planning commission and yes but we don't have enough plans in place to know that connectivity will work.
But what will satisfy the council if we do go to the surrounding property owners? What do we need to bring back that gives you comfort that they're going to work with us?
Written contracts.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
a letter
there
of
needs to be
intent.
Mouth agreements.
some agreements.
A letter of intent.
A letter of intent.
Are we saying if we don't have connectivity to the north, then it just kind of kills the whole plan for the property?
And would that
And-
kill the
we
commercial
said that.
aspect as well? Because they may need, we don't know who the commercial,
And property to the
B,
south
right.
also, right? Any
we
other,
don't know, I don't know what's going to happen to the south. I think there's a plan, but I don't know what it is.
but that would have to have the same connectivity to the north. If yours does, then that one would also need,
If the sewer has to
connected.
come from the south, is that what you said, Ryan?
Yeah.
Who's gonna
so
go?
it's-
so if we don't have,
But that's
if
where
you
it
can't get
falls.
that contract to the north, that's what I'm just wondering is,
I think the contract to the south or a way to connect becomes critical. That direction to the north doesn't have the utilities, doesn't have the need for sewer that direction, but it's certainly, I can get you there. If you'll contact me, I can get you the property owner to the north. I can get their contact for you, so if that helps.
Procedural question. Let me ask this first. Is it better to put it off or is it better to deny it in terms of what you would come back with?
We don't know what I'm going to come back with yet.
Okay.
And
So
I don't really
I'm
want
just
to
asking.
deny it because I'm not opposed to it.
But it might be better procedurally for what you are wanting to do for us to deny it. Then you come in under another.
Another $1,000.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
fee. I think at that point it's the fee to
Okay.
apply that I would say is the first difference. Second's filling out all the application, turning in all the information. Procedurally, keep in mind you have a motion you didn't take or get.
Yes,
second,
we'll
so-
get to that.
Could I make one more
Okay,
comment
so-
there? You want to see if you
Okay,
can
we
get
have a motion on
second?
the table. Let's do a second and then we can continue.
Well, and maybe I should retract my motion. Yeah, I would be happy to retract the motion and make a motion that we table then the entire property, and the developer will come back with due diligence on connectivity
Okay.
or representative.
I would second that.
Okay. The motion was retracted. A new motion was made,
Now,
and we have a second.
I have a second, but I have
Okay,
a question.
and now we have discussion.
At what point in our process can our land use get involved? Do we have to have a motion, or do we have to have a rezone approved before you can get involved? So if we table this, land use really can't get involved, but we do need land use because somehow land use is going to, I don't know, help coordinate this.
Land use can get involved conceptually, but we can't make any firm decisions without knowing what zone we're going after. So, what zone we have to plan to. So conceptually, we could look at it with people and we can say, yes, conceptually that should work. But we can't give any kind of a formal approval or anything, but we can look at it conceptually, just not formally. So it would have to be a conceptual type site plan, not a actual formal site plan that we could review, because we have to know what zone we're reviewing to.
I think, now I'm speaking just of my thoughts. We have a concept of what zone we're speaking to.
Right.
And we have a concept. I don't know what the concept to the property to the south is. For sure, we've seen, I saw something, but I don't know that anything's moved forward. So I guess the question is, it almost sounds like, since there's various property owners, do we need the city to be part of the umbrella that's kind of connecting this together conceptually? Or do we let the landowners put it together conceptually and come back to the city?
I think we should let the landowners, and then if that doesn't work very good, if for some reason the landowners can't get together, then perhaps the city could reach out to mediate. But the city has to be very careful that we have to be very careful and very cautious of private property rights. So we can encourage, we can facilitate, but we have to be very careful that we don't give any kind of a false approval, just that everybody keeps recognizing that it's conceptual until we actually do act on an application. And the application that we had quite some time ago to the property to the south, that would not be valid any longer because it's lapsed quite a bit. So there isn't an active plan out there right now.
So Kent, I turn to you. It sounds like this is a prime piece of property. We would like to see it done correctly. We'd like to see it commercial. The residential's fine. But this doesn't seem like all the ducks are in place to be able to, between the landowners, to make this happen. And if we move forward with the rezone, we are lacking a few ducts to get sewer out, water in, and a few things like that. And so maybe at this point, rather than table it, I want to table it because I don't want you to spend another $1,000. That's for sure. But I would like to see the landowners come back and give the city some concepts of how we can handle these things we're talking about. Can we do that and then come back? Let's do that, Ken. So, yes, all that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can I ask some questions?
Let's finish our discussion. Okay.
I just have a couple questions for Scarlett and Ryan. If they come up with, I think it would be awesome if you did like corridor agreement with the CMPO between Logan and Providence, because I think we hit Logan on both sides of those two properties, right? Well, where the road number changes, I'm not totally changed. Anyway, it's Logan and Providence are all kind of right there together. So, I would like to see that, but if they come up with a plan, is that sufficient for fire code? Just because there's an approved upon access point without the actual connection being made, is that sufficient with fire?
Well,
Or does the
connection
road
has to
have
be
to go
made.
through these other properties that are not currently developed?
Connection's
Does that
got to
make
be
sense?
made
My
before
my
to
question?
reach fire code. To read the actual fire to reach that connection's got to be made. That's the Highlands. That's why the Highlands is what it is right now.
Mhm.
They don't have that connection. But I look at the mirror across the street, the Macy's piece. We don't have a defined street through that development, but the development works fairly well because there is a connection on the north and to the south. And if that connection is there on First North, just if you were to take and mirror the
Right, there needs to be connection
the connection
out onto
between them,
1200 and 1700.
but it doesn't
corridor.
have to be a defined city street with all of the standard of a city street to connect commercial and residential together on that development. So I come back to Scarlett's. I think if the landowners can at least discuss and figure out maybe connectivity, that works. If they can't, and we have to determine what that connectivity is and come with a master plan over it, it becomes a bit more rigid than what they could come to without us. But we could come into that and master plan it. And if we came in and master planned it, we could master plan through Logan. Logan could ignore it, but at least it's there. But the property owners have more flexibility if they can figure that between them.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. What about the flow of the sewer? I think is a little confusing to me, since we're going to be talking about sewer in a minute. We're trying to look at expansion of 1200, so do we really have to go south to come back north? Is
Yes. That's called gravity. Gravity goes down.
Just remind me what our infrastructure is. Is the lift station at the corner of 300 and 165? Is that where it's pressurized?
No.
It's just south of.
The new lift station is west.
The new lift station would be
We only have
west
one.
of
We're building.
So
Logan
we
and
Right
Exterminate
across from,
Gravity?
it's right across from the street that goes into Blackhawk.
Right.
So the east side of the highway flows from 3rd South north to 1200 or First North. It flows on the east side to the north.
It flows to 165 and then goes north.
It 3rd South flows to 165, then it turns and goes north and flows gravity fed to 1200 South.
Correct.
Right.
Right. And now on the backside of this property, the sewer will flow the opposite direction. It will flow from wherever the property begins to
The lift station.
1700, the lift station, which is what, 14 feet deep or 21 feet deep? It's going to be
30
Pretty.
feet deep.
I think China's going to get it pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it'll be very deep,
Be very deep that direction.
very deep, because it has to pick up the property on the west side of the river. And so that'll be a lift station, which will lift it to 165 on 1700 South, and then it'll flow gravity fed to the north back with along this other. On the east side of the highway, it'll flow gravity flow.
It'll gravity flow north on the east side, but it gravity flows south on the west side.
That's correct.
That's exactly right.
That is correct. Absolutely.
Yep. And don't lick your fingers while you're dealing with it.
Alrighty then.
I'll make sure not to do that. My comment on the motion is that I feel like we should deny it if we're going to have planning commission look at it. I realize that's 2 application fees, but if we're looking for livability in the multifamily, nothing, we can't make it better if we don't deny it. They come in as is. And I looked at the parcel amounts between the HOA and Gateway and the parcel that's being proposed on the west side. They're like maybe an acre different. You're looking for an exact like a replica of Gateway. So well, not quite, because we adjusted our design standard. Well, but that's the density. That's the
I know,
density.
but they like grass and
Can't
open
we really
space.
need you on the microphone?
The developer is not Visionary Homes. They've done Ridgeview Townhomes and Fox Hollow Townhomes. And if you go by either one, they look very nice and they have grass and they have trees.
Well, both of those are RM12. I know those are RM18. Both of those
Same
are RM12.
developer, different person, different
I know,
outlook.
but that's 1.5 the density. Then, so they're not, you can't really compare them to be the same.
But can't we
My-
have the planning commission look at it even if we don't deny it? Can't we, not this particular, but look at the zone itself?
We can, but
With a
but it
denial.
won't impact this project.
It
If
will,
you're going to do that, you're going to need to put a temporary land use restriction. No, that's not the right word. Anyway, temporary ordinance that we don't consider any RM 18 until they re-look at the design standards, but you haven't even seen a development built to the new design standards.
That's true.
So you're not even allowing the design standards you've got in there to know what they look like.
That sounds like the state. Sorry.
Okay,
Wasn't in my-
I didn't.
if we go through with this, and just table it to have them come back with letters of intent for the access points, it doesn't have to go back to the planning commission. It can come right back here. So then we would look at those letters of intent for access without making them pay the extra $1,000, but yet they will come back with what we need. Is that true?
That's correct. Just curious, depth question. Is it the RM18 versus the RM12 that makes a bigger pause? I mean, we haven't approved many RM18. I think this is one of our last RM18s. We have approved some mixed use. The one north of the
Theaters.
The theaters is a mixed use. We have a couple other mixed use ones, but is it the level of density that you want to make sure that is? If this had come in under a less dense request, would that have been different for you? I'm just kind of asking if that's all right.
For me, it would, but I just feel like with the RM18, the standard of livability is even more important. I mean, I look at our RM18 behind us, and they have a path straight into Zollinger Park and all of that open space.
Sorry.
They have all of that open space that they have direct access to, as far as livability. And there is not that kind of access to park space on the west side. I mean, they could walk across 165 and go up the trail to Zollinger. I mean, it's not that far away, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And I feel like we're looking at young families looking for an affordable place to live. So to me, RM18, the livability of that density is really important.
Would there be a possibility of having an area within this property for a small park, pocket park, gathering area that so that they would have a place to gather and be? So that I'm just throwing that out. So I guess what I'm really saying, I understand the Planning Commission has approved it, but maybe with what we're dealing with, we don't, as a council, want to be part of the planning's process.
Well, you're asking for a different thing now. You're not asking about the rezone. You're asking to change the design standards for the multifamily.
Well, that has come up. That is the question because of the rezone as the density. The issue with density has come up because of the rezone. And so in a way, they're kind of connected, Scarlett.
Right.
And
but
it's for
two
us.
different-
Go ahead.
It's two different, the planning commission wouldn't go back and look again at the rezone unless you're telling them that you don't want to do RM18, you want the developer to consider R112, then the planning commission would look at that. But if the problem is that you feel like in the RM18, there needs to be more open area for livability, but don't forget there's a great big park west of them too that Logan has. And so, but if that's the case, then that's a different ordinance. That's a completely different ordinance. That's not the zoning. That is going in and looking at the design standards and reconsidering how much open space. Right now, we require 25% of the entire development be open space. And there has to be a playground in there, a child's play area. It's 800 square feet for the first 10 units, and then I can't remember, but it grows exponentially based on the number of units in there. So, and it's called right out, a child's play area for playground equipment and stuff. So they have, even if they've got park right next door to them, they still have to provide their own child's play area. If they were doing Fox Hollow now, they would have to have a play area in Fox Hollow. That's in all of the multifamily now, is there's a play area, and all of the multifamily now is 25% open space. The play area can be part of that open space, but they do have to have a play area. That's in the new code, and you haven't seen a development come in under that new code yet. Because everything that's come in has been under the old design standards. This will be the first one to do it, I think.
Please forgive my ignorance. I didn't know that there was 25% required. When you say 25% open space, does this include any parking, front yard lots? What does it include? Does this include an area, a gathering area of some sort? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
It's in addition to.
Okay, forgive my ignorance. I
Parking
did
lot
not know
doesn't
that.
count as open space.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what the people in the multifamily units, I haven't had, to my knowledge, I haven't had very many complaints about lack of open space. I've just had a lot of complaints about lack of parking. And that kind of falls on deaf ears when it comes to the state, because they're looking at reducing parking requirements even more. But that seems to be the biggest problem in our multifamily areas, is parking more than open space. So,
Well, we've all noticed a reduction in cars and traffic on the streets and stuff, so we shouldn't really worry about parking because we've all noticed that reduction. You can go anywhere and never run into another car.
well, the electric bikes have picked up, Brent. Maybe that's what we'll all be on in a minute.
There you go.
Could be.
I was just gonna say the density
Hmm?
doesn't bother me in this location. I'm just still trying to get the question answered about connectivity to the north, if that's a must, a make or break. If they can't find an agreement to the north, is it just don't let in?
Not necessarily.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, it will come back to us and then we
yeah,
decide
I
if
mean,
what
it
they
can
have
still,
is
yeah.
sufficient.
Because if there's no connectivity, then maybe it needs to go down to the less dense.
Well, he's talking about another piece that could possibly do that
Right,
if Logan
yeah,
won't
I-
allow it through there. So I think we need to give them an opportunity to.
So
Does
table it.
open space include sensitive areas?
Kent.
I'm sorry to bring this up, but one of the landowners that we're talking about is in this room going to the south.
Yeah. I don't think you'll have a problem connecting to the south. It's just the north. That's why I keep bringing up the north. But I don't know.
But-
I'm just guessing.
But right now, that's our only option. So
So
if we ask that person if they would allow interconnectivity, does that satisfy the council? I hate to put you on the spot, but
Because you
You need a
can-
letter of
You can have it
intent.
to the south and to the east. Right?
That can come offline. But this is not the place.
Right.
well, it
Maybe we could
saves
take a
4
vote.
weeks of
I think so.
offline work. Would you be open to that? Interconnectivity. I don't know what you're developing. We don't know what we're developing, but they want interconnectivity from me to you and you to me.
As a mayor, I want interconnectivity
landowner.
with everything.
So as an individual, you'd want the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The connectivity between cities has just been ignored for far too long. We need connectivity with our sister cities, since we're all one big city.
I still would like to see you do some due diligence with connectivity to the north and have more connectivity planned. So I would love to see us vote, since we've still got a long agenda. And
Okay, we do have a motion on the table,
What was it again?
and we have a second.
Table?
Will you repeat the
yeah,
motion?
that we table this rezone and ask the developer or representative to come back with a connectivity plan.
Okay, we have a motion, and we did have a second. Further discussion?
I believe I seconded it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, we have, motion passes. Four people for it, one against. Okay. We'll go on to item number 7, Resolution 14-2024, Boundary Line Adjustment with Logan City. The Providence City Council review, discuss, and may take action on a resolution establishing the city's intent to move forward with the boundary line adjustment between Logan City involving parcels 02-005-004, 02-005-005, and 02-005-0010. This is an application. This is to say that we are willing to look at this. And so this is for permission to move ahead to determine what it means and what it is. So Ryan, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah. Similar to receiving a annexation petition. So this isn't the adoption, like the mayor said, this isn't the adoption of or making the change. This is just receiving that, and then there's a process to start. Just to kind of go over this a little bit, this is in the shoreline area and development. They had, between the Wattersons and the Check Piece, I don't know who was representing at that time, but anyway, they had a property dispute on whether the fence was the property line or where the property line was. When they resolved that, and they resolved it with the previous recorder, it was our understanding that resolution resolved the city line as well. Oh, the county recorder, sorry. Right. So, county recorder, clarification. So we thought with the previous county recorder that would have fixed that. We worked in good faith with the development. They submitted a design, preliminary plats, and we moved forward with that understanding. And then when they went to record that, that line didn't change. So this is this black line right here on the map, up to this yellow line. And so what you're talking about is really that these are the areas, these are the piece of parcel that brought it up, but it's moving this black line to that yellow line, so that Shoreline can finish theirs. They've already resolved the property. So this is one property owner, their development, they've moved forward. We have service and connectivity. Logan doesn't at this point have service or connectivity. but it would be Logan above us. So that's what this is about, is just this little piece that we're saying, you know, yeah, we'll consider bringing it into Providence rather than leaving it in Logan and then having them try to develop from Logan Utilities. So.
Okay. So, do you have any questions for Ryan? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we take action on the resolution 14-2024 boundary line adjustment with Logan City for parcel 02-005-004, 02-005-005, and 02-005-0010.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So motion passes. We go on to resolution 15-2024 Justice Court Judge Vacancy Nomination Commission Appointment. Providence City Council review and discuss and may take action on a resolution that nominates the city manager and city recorder to serve on the nominating committee that will oversee the hiring of a new judge for the Providence City Justice Court. If you remember, our judge ran for an office and had to resign from his position. So, Ryan, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, Ty, right?
Ty.
Speak to it, either one.
Ty? We usually don't hear from
Ty,
Ty.
you want to speak on that one?
Loves to talk.
Yeah, so this will also include my staff review then, so. So yeah, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, our application for hiring a judge closed. However, we didn't have enough applicants, so it's extended for 2 more weeks. But with this process, the AOC, or the Office of the Courts, required 2 people from the city to be on the 5-member committee that will interview these potential judges, who will then nominate someone to the mayor for the official hiring. And again, this resolution just appoints me and Ryan to be those 2 people. However, it's up to you guys. If you want to change it, you could. The other 3 members will be appointed by the administrative office. And then when the application closes on October 2nd, we'll get together, find time to get together and start the interview process and go from there.
So there's 1 person from the county, 1 person from the courts, and 1 person that the Bar Association appoints, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We have a motion? Oh, no. That's the last one. Okay, we need a motion.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. We approve item number 8, 15-2024 Justice Court Judge Vacancy Nomination Commission Appointment.
Okay. So we do have a motion now. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have yes, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I just want to make a comment that the district court's judges we talked about it for probably half of legislative policy committee meeting on Monday. And I feel like we're in a really good place. I mean, we've been dealing with this all year, but we're definitely ahead of the state on this. And I think we've already done our math, our numbers, everything. So go us. Good job.
So it was a rah-rah speech.
Yeah. Good job, council.
That was
Okay.
Staff, everyone.
Well, it's nice to be ahead of the curve and doing the right thing so that we can take care of our citizens locally instead of sending them. Some of the cities that eliminated their justice court were sorry that they did that. So we're glad to be moving ahead. So any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is 1200 South Sewer Capital Improvement Project, West Logan City. Council will review, discuss, and may take action on plans to move forward with a capital improvement project with Logan City regarding sewer improvement work on 1200 South. This is our main line that needs to be upsized in order for us to continue to let people build in our city. Ryan?
That is accurate.
Okay.
So we do share this line with Logan. All of our city flows through at this line at some point. And even the growth will flow through. There's just after our meters. And then Logan has connected on with a few connections down on theirs. So they have agreed to a portion. And the original agreement when this line was put in many years ago, in the mid 80s, what's that? 89. That when it needed to be updated or when something needed to be updated, we'd do it based on connections. They've been really good about coming in. That was the original spot was just on connections, and some of their connections are bigger than some of ours. So they did alter to a equivalent unit. But we do use the vast majority of the capacity of this line. If we'd build a treatment facility, then we could have avoided some of that. We couldn't, or we worked on trying to make our own treatment plant feasible at 55, 60 million. It's just not. And so we're estimating this to be about $1 million project. It'll still have, so this is the initial start to the process. This will take us to RFP. And then once we get to RFP, we'll work jointly together to pick a contractor to design it, or pick a firm to design it. Then at that point, we'll bid it out. That'll come back as a contract. Then we'll have the budget, and then we'll have. So there's multiple stages of what this will be, but this is kind of a starting of the domino, saying, all right, we have a 12-inch line that is near or at capacity. Now that doesn't mean it's completely full. That means it's at design capacity. So I don't want anybody to think that they can't flush their toilet or take a shower. That's not the case. But at this point, the design capacity, we've reached that and so we need to look to update this. We expect it to be updated within the next 2 years. And this would be along 1200 South, between Highway 165 and Highway 8991. That's the section that this would be through. So we're asking for your go ahead for us to start working with Logan and finding an engineering firm to start to design this. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
So I have a question. It seems like we're stuck between a rock and a hard spot and we have to do this. If we didn't, besides Walmart backing up with sewage, like would the state make us, or would the state step in, because it would require a moratorium on building? Or would they just say, no, you have to?
We could ask Millville.
See,
We have a completely different problem than Millville.
We may
I don't
not,
know how
we,
you can
we may
even
not,
compare.
We may not if this line fills up. But yeah,
No, we do not have to dig up every yard in the city
No, we don't.
and
No, we
take
don't.
out half the streets.
We just have to take out the put in a line. This would probably be a parallel line in that 1200 South. I think we have a contract with them to do this. So we've contracted with them in the 80s that we would do this when it was needed.
Okay.
So I don't know that we'll have much of a leg.
When you were 5, this was put in place.
So Ryan, I have a question for
All right.
you. When it was put in originally, it extended all the way to 10th West, to the
correct.
lift station on 10th.
Yes, it still does.
Okay, so are we not on the hook for anything beyond 8991?
Oh, no. This is just the portion at which is now reached
The
our design capacity. So when that reaches, then we'll have to update it as well. So this is the first of dominoes of many, many, many.
Do you know what size that line is?
This one's 12, and I think I think the next one's 15. But it's somewhat flat, and I'm not an engineer to
Yeah, I
tell you
can't
how much flow
remember.
that is.
I remember the line going in. I remember it being installed. The other question I have, does our line on Gateway Drive also feed into that line, or is that another connection that goes across the highway and different?
Both feed in to this line, just at different points.
That's what I thought. Yeah, okay. So both lines feed into it.
That's correct.
All right.
Do we have impact fees to cover this? What percentage of this do we have impact fees for?
It all depends on whether you're going to build a lift station, which we've committed to, and that's where your impact fees are going. And so at this point, we're looking for funding. That's why we'll look for funding. I have a meeting tomorrow with the economic development and seeing if we can write a grant for some of that. We're also looking for other funding options, but at this point, we haven't built the impact fee balance large enough to pay for probably both of those projects at this point, but they're coming due at the similar point.
Okay, so we might be able to get funding.
So
We're certainly looking at it, absolutely, and,
Okay.
and looking
We
at
just
very
need
options.
it approved so we can do it.
But it is an
Get funding.
impact fee eligible project.
Right.
Okay,
So if something happened on the lift station and we used the impact fees on this, it's eligible for impact fees if we chose to do that.
And if this goes and we go through, we still have 6 years to collect impact fees to pay for that. We can use even 6 years into the future, the impact fees we collect from those back to this. Or if we take out a loan, we could use it to pay those
we could use
premiums,
impact fees to pay.
to pay
the loan.
that loan off. So we
Okay.
may come back with a loan and say, hey, we may want to borrow so that we can use impact fees over a longer period of time.
And I'm guessing you're looking for funding on the lift station, additional funding on the lift station too. So if it came in on one or the other, we could reapply impact fees.
Certainly.
I'll be collecting letters from some of our businesses that are planning expansions. That would be an economic boon to our city because they would be bringing more jobs in. And some of the companies that we're talking to have high-paying jobs, really high-paying jobs. So
I'll make a motion so we can move forward. If it's okay.
yes,
I'll make a motion that we approve item number 9, 1200 South Sewer Capital Improvement Project with Logan City.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jeff, you're really quiet down there.
Aye.
And I couldn't see your mouth moving, so. Okay, so motion carries. We'll close that item and we'll go to item number 10, 100 East Sidewalk. Providence City Council will discuss and may take action on 100 East Sidewalk plans and the STRTS grant, Safe Routes to School grant. Okay, so we have a lot of audience members here. I'm assuming that they're here for the answer to this.
They're here for staff reports, I think.
I'm sure they are. We've heard and read and talked and met a lot about this. So as far as public comment, I don't think that's necessary because we've all heard the information. So now is the time for the council to discuss this, and we need to make a decision. So I will tell you that did you hear me, Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a statement.
Is it brand new information? Brand new. We've never heard it before.
Not everybody. That's not
Okay, well, if we've heard it before, everybody has heard it. So.
What are you afraid of?
Not afraid of. We've heard it all. We've read it all.
May I make a statement?
If I allow one, I have to allow all. So we need to discuss it as a council. We have not met. It's against the law for us to meet together to discuss. So now is the time for us to discuss.
Has there been a public forum?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, several.
The last 3 months at council meeting.
Right.
I get to say something, get prompted.
No. We're going to discuss as a council. So we do have new information in that the engineers looked at it and it was not a 90-foot right of way, but it's a 99-foot right of way.
That has been confirmed.
And we have a brand new engineering study by the house across the street that gives us a pin to measure from. So we have 9 more feet. Okay.
So here's what I hear from citizens. I hear 3 main concerns, and I've met with them multiple times, and listened and read the emails, and I feel like the citizens want to feel heard, and here's how I interpret. They're worried about the trees in the lower section, and they want to make sure they're saved. They're worried about irrigation and that they can still flood irrigate. They're worried about historical preservation. Up further in the street, they're worried about the spring and the flooding. And what is less spoken but more felt is that it feels like it's cutting through their front yards, even though that property really is owned by the city. It feels like it cuts through their front yards, and they can't, there's no argument in this because the city owns it. But I feel, what I hear and what I feel is, I feel like it feels to them like an intrusion in their front yards to have the sidewalk come through. My personal perspective is that as a council, our priority is safety. And so the sidewalk has to go in some form, in some place. But those are the main arguments that I hear from the citizens. Are you guys hearing differently?
No, I've heard
or
the same.
understanding differently?
I've heard some of the same, and I don't think they're only concerned with their street. They've been looking at all of Providence, and this is what I have heard. I think they're seeing not just problems on their street, but problems in different places where we're building sidewalks that don't connect.
Connectivity of sidewalks, yeah.
So they're not just looking out for their own street, but they're looking out for everywhere in Providence where sidewalks, if they're built on that 99 plan on the property line, they're causing more problems. So if we continue with this throughout the whole city, it's not just going to be 100 East in here, Coalition. It's going to be, I think we'll run into more and more problems. Coalitions all over the city coming in. And
I would say mostly in the historic district
Right,
that's been established.
not in new
Not
development.
the whole entire city.
It wouldn't apply to the
Yeah.
whole city.
So,
The whole entire city.
so let's talk about each one of the concerns. Like the trees. They had an arborist report, and I think we all received that through email. And we have one coming. The trees clearly have value. And I think based on the research that we've done, that we can put in a sidewalk on either side of the trees and save the trees.
especially with the 99-foot easement.
Yeah, on the property line, we can save the trees. The historic fill, they've been talking about sidewalks for 100 years. The sidewalks on the property line. I think sidewalks don't take away the historic feel. Although I've wondered if we need to run it past the Historic Preservation Committee and let them do a report and report to the state, just for any legality. But I think the Historic Preservation Committee will also come back and say, yeah, sidewalks have been going in for a long, long time, and it doesn't distract from the historic preservation. What do you guys think? And I'm not talking away from you. I'm just
understand.
looking at majority.
So we have an extra 9 feet. Is that specifically on the west, or does that get split basically?
What was your question?
The extra.
The 99 feet, where is
Extra
it
9
measured
feet.
from?
So you said there's an extra 9 feet. Is that 4.5
It's
for
measured
each
from
side?
property to property across the street. Property pin to property pin across the street.
So we have a newly placed property pin
We do,
on the Miller's property.
right.
So that gives us,
A place to measure from.
right.
Now, unless that's in air,
And that's from a historic plat.
that's from historic plat, yes.
Right.
Do we have exceptions to sidewalk placement in other parts of town?
Can we stick with historic for
Can
just
I
a minute?
comment on that for a second?
Just my question. I don't want
So,
it.
so I looked through the GIS and all of the exceptions of where sidewalks were in alternate locations through the city. And I would say, overwhelmingly, they're on the property line, even if their location in the street profile is, looks different, right? Than like the Park Strip curb and gutter path. The placement is at property line. So like 100 South, where we bought right of way, and we could only get the property owners negotiate a certain amount that we paid for that right of way. We only had enough to actually put a sidewalk in on one side, except for on the east corner of, like, at Second West, because that particular property owner gave us the right of way we needed to finish the sidewalk on both the north and the south side of 100 South as it meets Second West. I mean, that's just one example of the highlighted different, like, sidewalk things that have been highlighted to us. Anyway, sorry, back to historic.
So, if I may speak, I met with Wes Bitters, who's chairman of the Historic Committee, and here in Providence, and we discussed the tree issue and their involvement in the historic part of Providence and what they would be looking at. And he said, we're not actually an enforcement, we're a recommending body. He said we felt like that this was definite infringement on the historic part of Providence, it would be taken to the state. But he says, we'll take a look at it and see what you're going to do. And from that point, we would take it to the state if we felt like that you were encroaching or infringing upon the historical part. Most of the code is regarding buildings. There is a small line in there that says landscape. I did not see anything that directly was applicable to a tree, but Wes said they would like to review it, which I think we are totally in agreement. The fact that if it moves forward, we would they would be involved in it.
SHPO would be, and other environmentalists.
Sure, absolutely.
We're very early in the process.
Yeah.
At a 60% design. At a 60% design, that's still very early. We had an environmentalist that was hired, ready to begin, and we would go through the SHPO, the state's historic office. Those are part of the required process for the grant. So that was pieces of the puzzle would have been done and will be done if we proceed. So
If we proceed, that's very much a part of what we will do as far as the historic part of Providence.
I did reach out to the state historic preservation office. I talked to them about this particular application and project, you know, the historic district application and the project and what the implications were there. They reviewed the National Registry application, and they told me that that the sidewalks were not really a historical consideration, but when I highlighted the landscaping to them, they also indicated that it's primarily buildings and that historic preservation is considered an honorary designation, the district is, and it doesn't supersede property rights. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. I did tell them we had hired an arborist, and they thought that was great. And I did ask them, what due diligence do we need to do to make sure that, you know, we're respecting this designation, that we're, you know, addressing all of those pieces. They didn't say it was required, but they did recommend doing having a preservation consultant, but it sounds like that is part of the grant process requirement anyways. So I think that that will be built into it.
So then the irrigation concern, Brent's more of a specialist than I am. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think, is Brian here? No, not you. Brian Davies. There you are. Do you still flood? Do you flood your front yard? Okay. So if the side where I flood my backyard for neighbor. And you flood your backyard.
My neighbor immediately north of me floods everything.
On the
Finley.
Okay. Is that the Westover I'm sorry. Is that the Westover property? Okay. I have to go back a little bit. Sorry. It's been a few years since I knew who lives in these houses down there. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with the flooding. And we have, I think myself, that flooding is an issue and it's concerning. I want people to be able to use irrigation water. That's important to me. I would recommend, if we proceed with a sidewalk, that it be put into a grade that flooding could still be utilized. So that in other places we put sidewalk in to meet the crown of the road. But I know there's a lot of old parts of Providence where that sidewalk is not put in to meet the crown of the road. Or even the edge. I can't remember if it's the crown or edge.
So they can continue to flood irrigate with a sidewalk, right? Don't they just use it as like
they actually
as
some of
part
them,
of the irrigation process?
They do. They run the water down the sidewalk and cut it over onto their property. This would probably run more directly to the west on these properties, and so it'd be a matter of maybe stopping it at period places on the sidewalk so it would continue to run west. I'd like to see them be able to do that. And so my recommendation, if we proceeded, was to be sure that the sidewalk was at a grade that would support the irrigation of the property rather than to stop the irrigation of the property. I'd like to see that continue because irrigation is important to me, yes. Flood irrigation, you can do it once a week and you're done. You don't have to worry about it again.
So last week, my plan was to come in with a proposal to do some type of above ground decking type pathway. But as I think about it and the upkeep for the citizens, the weeds growing through it, the snow blowing, I really feel like they would be unhappy ultimately with that, even though it would not interfere with the irrigation, keep historic preservation, and it would absolutely not interfere with the trees. I think that proposal, ultimately, they would have an above ground pathway, but they wouldn't be happy with it. Because their space would still be encroached on, and they would still be worried about connectivity in other parts of the city. And so I feel like that's not the best solution, because ultimately they will have fought for something that they're unhappy with.
The other problem with wood shrinks and get spaces between it. Weeds can grow up through those
Right, the weeds
spaces,
coming through it.
and it would be, and wood would be a highly maintenance item.
Yeah.
And so you'd be, I just don't think that has merit.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking wood. I was thinking more of a decking like Trex or
like
something
Trex or
that's like
something.
a 30-year life. But I think ultimately the upkeep on it would be so much for the property owners that they would be unhappy with that.
Now,
If you've seen Park City, they have
Mhm.
metal walkways, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess. There's all kinds of stuff under there. So
I
they
think
wouldn't be
ultimately
happy
they
with
would be
that.
more happy with the concrete.
And nowhere else in the city do we have that
Yeah.
either. So it's not historic
so
in nature.
here's another thought. What if, just Janelle and I talked about this, what if we put the sidewalk on the east side? So we come down off of the property for south. The sidewalk is on the east side. Over Dry Hollow, we would probably have to build some kind of a bridge over that. And whether we've got a little bit of a wet area through there, and I don't know if that can be totally mitigated before we started putting in a sidewalk or not, or whether we build something, what you're talking about. The problem is keeping it maintained, as we've talked about, keeping the weeds from growing up through it. That all is a part of it. And I don't know if that could be explored. There are properties that have driveways and other issues in that far south area, around 3rd South, and that area, that would have to be dealt with, changing the grade of parts of their driveway or raising the sidewalk high enough so they could come up and enter their property and make that work. That is a concept that could happen. I don't know if that's worth exploring, but certainly we wouldn't be taking out any trees. And we do have, who's the builder that built that new?
Not the old mature trees anyway.
What's that?
Not the great big trees. I don't.
Well, that'd
I
be
wouldn't be able
bushes.
to. Yeah, I don't. I would have to look at it specifically.
But the other thing that the builder that just finished the front of his yard, that really looks nice, would interfere with that. That we'd have to deal with. What's his name? Anyway,
Todd Jensen.
Jensen, yes. That would be an issue with his property and concerning through there. And well,
Do you
but
think,
we can't.
Brett?
Have you got trees out there? I'm sorry.
So if we move to the other side of the road, we just open a different can of worms.
We could be. Yes,
Yeah,
we could be.
I think, and the grant is
Grant money,
specific to the side of the road.
Is it the south side or west side?
What, it's specific
Okay,
to the
then
west
that's-
side of the road.
Consideration. I just thought of that a while ago, but if it's not a consideration, table it, forget that.
Janelle has done more homework than anyone, guaranteed, probably than all of us put together. What do you think, Janelle?
Okay.
Another idea that was brought forth is connectivity and how to use funds for sidewalks in contiguous projects, which I actually thought was a really interesting idea when I talked to the residents about this idea. But as I've read and I've thought and I've studied about this and I've looked at exceptions that have been made for the historic district, like regarding curb and gutter, I actually don't know in detail the way that whole thing went together, but I do feel like the way to have different or additional considerations made for a region is with a zoning overlay. And if that's what we need for historic downtown is an overlay that's has specific guidelines for historic areas, I honestly think that's probably the best mechanism. It's something that would be vetted by the Planning Commission. Any changes to it would go through the Land Use Authority. They would go possibly be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Committee. And those two recommended bodies would bring that to the council so that we can make, approve or deny those recommendations, which I feel like also just gives more like exposure to the city as a whole to review, because our planning commission members are from all over the place. Our historical commission members are from all over the city. Our council members are from all over the city. So it really gives us like a broad look.
Yeah, like 15 citizens that are committed
Or
to
more.
community
Somewhere
service,
between
15 to 20
15 to 20
committed to community service.
that are actively serving to look at it and to consider the angles and the point of view. I mean, to me, I feel like that is, that is what should be done. That a code change should be presented to the Planning Commission through the staff for a historical overlay zone to bring in all of these considerations. And then it's looked at by the Planning Commission and the Historical Preservation Commission, and they make recommendations to the council, because I think that's the way things should flow. I think that is the proper flow of things, the proper procedural flow of things, to make sure that things are looked at. I do think the Historic Preservation Commission should go out and look at it, like you and Wes talked about. All the code and the letters and the things that that Judson wrote up and sent. I've read all those state codes. I read our city codes, and to understand whose job is what, whose role is which, to look at these things. And that's essentially what I boiled down to, is to have a zoning overlay within the historical district, because it defines a parameter, it makes and establishes what is acceptable within that area. Typically, code changes are done by application and fee through the city process. I will say with this Safe Routes to School project, and future Safe Routes to School projects, that we've had grant funding for other ones that are coming down the pipeline, but the funding isn't available till, I don't know what year.
26.
26. Sorry, I have to think what my thought was that I was going to say about that. I don't know.
So with this Safe Route to School project,
The process you're talking about is going to take a year.
Well, actual construction, breaking ground, clearly we're at 60% design. We have to get to 90% design. We have to get to, then once we have a design, we have to go out for bid to get the contract amounts. I don't think, with my amount of experience on the council, that this would be like ground break ready till June if we're lucky. 9 months, maybe spring, maybe March. I don't know.
Maybe spring, if everything were to proceed ahead.
Maybe spring, which when I look at my experience doing code adjustments, it takes about 6 months.
6 months.
It takes about 6 months to get those things through all the proper channels and the review and the recommending bodies, and the staff input. It takes about that long to get it done. And so I don't feel like moving forward with the project, this is too far ahead of being able to accomplish those goals. But I think at least gives us a path forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what my opinion is.
Jeff, I'm curious if you have solutions to the connectivity or, like,
Are we just talking from Center Street to 100 South, or how far?
you're
Just
talking
around
about
the
the big
block?
picture. I just was wondering if you
Connecting
had
around the block?
ideas. Mm-hmm.
I think connecting around the block is a good start.
So basically 1 block at a time is how we have to do it.
I think so. And then with what you're saying, you'd have a, what did you call it?
Overlay.
Zoning overlay.
Zoning overlay. It's like a committee that would take each situation one at a time, and
It means the historic district
Wouldn't
would have
be
a different,
Yeah, go ahead.
the historic different district would
there'd be
be
exceptions
different than the
to-
rest of the city.
Right.
Any type of code variations would be approved and established by the planning commission
So this committee
and
could,
recommended to the council to adopt by ordinance. Is that wrong?
No, you would, yes, you would make a change to the code, but it's not on a case-by-case basis.
Not case.
Right.
it's
Right, right.
You would do an
the
overall,
whole historic,
an overall code change,
Yeah,
but it's
for
So
not
the-
case-by-case.
the same code would apply
To that area.
to that area. You couldn't take it case by case.
It can't be that way in a city.
No,
It
we have to have rules, and we need to follow those rules. Otherwise, it's chaos.
I'm not sure how we would make any progress case like person by person. I think that it depends
Block
on
by
the
block.
situation, right? If you're looking at interblock development, there could be a consideration made for that within the overlay. If you're looking at like an impact fee for sidewalks, that could be put in consideration in the overlay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's my understanding. I could be wrong.
Now, keep in mind, an overlay is, as I understand, let's say we have an overlay. If we overlaid, we would say, hey, we want to maintain a historic feel in this overlay area. That may include saying, hey, you know, it's historic to have only single story houses. Most of the historic ones are single story. And maybe that is a requirement that says, okay, we have certain requirement of additional ones. We want a only brick exterior. We don't want modern stucco or modern siding. It would be at that point, usually when you have overlays, they are overlaying, not making a modification to current code, but they're adding a code in order to keep it and adding a recommendation. So if you have an overlay, like an airport overlay, it says, oh, you can have all your regular items, except you can't a height. They overlay and say, hey, you can't have anything higher than this amount. So it adds that as an additional criteria or additional requirement on top of other standard adopted requirements. So that's how you maintain. So you say, oh, hey, we don't allow at the historic, when you sent me the paperwork, it said in it, hey, you know what, 100 of these homes or whatever were fit in that historic area. This many didn't, but it would be to try to have either a replacement home to match that historic feel. It could be exterior requirements. It could plant historic
landscaping.
Historic landscaping, keeping of that historic item. But generally an overlay is not a separate set of rules. It is a added criteria in order to maintain what you're trying to maintain. So these are added rules that you're talking about.
So the overlay wouldn't make exceptions for having a sidewalk placed not on the property line?
Generally,
could.
overlays add requirements. That
Right,
they
that's-
overlay everything eligible that's required in that district, that zoning district.
Yeah.
And at this point, we don't have a historic district as a code district. So when we talk about districts and that we talk about zoning districts, we have what we've talked about: multifamily, the RM 18. That's a district. Commercial highway district. We have. Those are districts. There isn't a historic district. Now, there is a historic district as far as the state recognizes as the National Registry, that kind of, they're kind of,
Zoning designation.
but
for
there's
that
not a zoning
in Providence
designation
code.
district that fits and overlays our, or over arches our laws. We have laws that are based on districts, and so you'd have a, I mean, you could do saying, hey, instead of having a overlay, you could do a whole zoning district and say, hey, everything in the historic district can only have, and then these laws, and then you would have something different. But if you have an overlay, it overlays on top of the additional, top of the existing requirements. So anyway, to give you that idea, but if you created a historic district, then you would say, okay, well, how many houses, what's the density, what's the requirements, which houses, what's allowed, you know.
What kind of finishes on the outside of the house? What kind of
Don't you
landscaping?
have
So maybe we need to figure out exactly what things can be specified in a zoning overlay.
If you-
Which I'm not totally sure exactly. I mean, I
Even-
guess there's land use guidelines, right? Yeah.
There is, and honestly, there's not as much as, it used to be you could do a little bit more, but I don't think even in the historic district that we can call out architecture on a single family home. So, I mean, it's, the historic districts, as you heard, they are more of an honorific type designation. I mean, they're important, and I will tell you, we tried right after the historic district was actually approved and went in place. We tried to take forward some ordinances that would, we weren't asking to change the placement of sidewalks. We were looking more at just the preservation of the character, more aesthetic stuff. And we actually, when people really got to thinking about what it was going to do to impact their own yard, we got a lot of pushback. So the Historic Preservation and the Planning Commission didn't even want to consider them. Maybe they will now, but when the Historic District first went in, that was going to be our next step, was to put rules within that historic district and create kind of its own zone, and that didn't go very well. And state code actually changed some too, because in the avenues and stuff, people were beginning to say that it was infringing on their property rights, and so state code does play into what we can actually require. So we can certainly look at it. I'm not saying it's not something to look at, but we are limited in what we can do.
And doesn't every property owner have to get involved? You have to have notices.
You have to have a majority or something.
Yeah,
Yes, you do, Brent.
There's
It's
some
quite a
things that
deal.
have to happen in order for that historic district to have those things. Yeah, the people pushed back, and they just flat out
You
said
remember
no.
that, don't
Yes, I do. Oh, very well. Yeah.
I had to hide in my office for a while.
Yeah. Right. But again, if it needs to be approached, why not? I don't think it'll happen or do any good, but why not?
So if you're not ready to take action on this item, you can put it off.
Does anyone have a motion?
I mean, I can motion to put the sidewalk on the east side of the trees if that's a possibility, but I mean, you put the sidewalk there and the city still owns to the property line, even though the sidewalk's not on it. But I don't know, or if I need to know why it's such a struggle to put the sidewalk on the east side of the trees. What your answer is, each of you individually. I don't know if I need to know that or not, but
I've spent a lot of time thinking about putting it on the east side of the trees, and ultimately, if the city were the neighbor, so to speak, then the neighbor puts their fence up to their property line, and as
Hold on.
so if the city is the
Put the sidewalk there.
so say I'm the neighbor to anyone on the street. I would put my fence on the property line. And I represent 9,000 people who live in Providence who own the property up to the property line. And so do I essentially forfeit it for those 9,000 people and move the sidewalk on the other side of the trees and have the snow pushed onto the sidewalk and the kids still not having the best option for a safe route to school?
I just don't think the snow's an issue at all.
And the sidewalk closer to the road.
I mean, there'd still be the
But
shoulder.
okay.
And the snow wouldn't
It's enough.
be an issue.
But what about forfeiting the property that belongs
Property.
to the 9,000 people
It-
in Providence?
We don't forfeit anything. It's still the property line.
But it will never be accessed by the people of Providence. It will always appear as if it belongs to the people whose front yard it is.
But nobody,
Just a minute,
nobody's.
just a minute.
No, I'm okay.
We've asked for no comments, so
just-
please,
Nobody's.
Respect.
Nobody in the town
Yeah.
is gonna worry about that property. The citizens are just gonna continue to take care of it for the city.
Which they would
Taking
as
them
the
up.
park strip too.
So.
And the things that I don't see the irrigation as a problem. The sidewalk can be put in such a way that it actually helps flood irrigation. We're not going to need to take out trees. And it doesn't lose its historic value by putting in the sidewalk.
And I think myself, I look at the historic area of Providence where it does have sidewalk.
It's on the property line.
It's on the property. Well, yeah, back on property. This would be the exception in the same district. To me, wouldn't have the same connectivity to the historic area as the rest of the downtown area. It would take on a different view, a different feel. I just know myself, I built a house at 65 South, and I was always told there would be a sidewalk there. I put railroad ties out to the ditch, and they made me take them out because they said, that is our property, and there will be a sidewalk down. It never got put in. We never had money to put it in. But, let me talk about a scenario. My concern is safety.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is a safe route to school. It's not the only safe route to school, but it is a safe route to school that we felt is important because it's going to come off of the South Bench. Now, we are making an exception, has been brought to my attention, not to go in and put a high retaining wall around First East as it goes up around towards Haycock's place. We tried that on Second East, and it was a very, very expensive proposition. And we would have to go in, buy property, build a retaining wall in order for that sidewalk to come down there. The property came available to go down through that empty lot, and we as a council felt like that was a possible and a good solution to have access off that South Bench area. And so now the problem is, or the concern is, getting children as well as other people who walk that area. There are a lot of walkers, and not have to walk on the road. Let's take a scenario, safety. One of you possibly is walking along with your children. You or your kids get hit by a car. Okay. The issue is, wasn't Providence have any obligation to provide a safe route? Well, it goes to court. The judge says, hey, where's this safe route that you were looking at? Did you not have the money? Yes, we had the money. Did you not have the right-of-way? Yes, we had the right-of-way. Did you not have a need? Yes. They asked us for a safe route for kids to get to school. So why did you not do it? So the other person says, my child is dead because you didn't do it, or my child is maimed because you, as a council, had responsibility for our city that we voted you in. Where does that lie? Where does that responsibility lie? We have people on the South Bench that are not here tonight. They want a safe route for kids to go to school. They want to walk it. We represent them too, not just the people here in the room. We represent all those people. Yes, you guys are here with a concern. But if something happens, that silent group that's not here voicing an opinion has a concern as well. And they have a right. They have a right to a council to act in a safe manner for children to be able to walk as well as other people. And coming back to the issues, we have the money, we have the right-of-way, we have the need, and we can do it without taking out your trees. We can do it, and the question is, why don't we? And it's because the public said don't. The public that's on those streets said, don't do it. And so,
Okay,
said
let's
put it
do
on
it
the
then.
east side. Put it on the east side.
well,
It's a safe route.
I'm okay with that.
There's a sidewalk.
Please.
It's on the east
Please.
side.
Now, wait a minute.
Up. But why build it on the east side of the trees when we have the right of way and we're not going to take out the trees? Why would we build it on the east side? I'm not asking you guys. I'm asking them.
I'll clear the room if we can't have it quiet.
So why build it on the east side of the trees? We own the property. We don't have to take out the trees. It's not going to be an irrigation problem. It's not a historic problem. So what is the problem?
I don't see a problem myself.
Okay, I'm going to have the courage to make a motion. I make the motion that we move forward with the proposed sidewalk on the property line. I would like up on the higher end of the project to consider alternate materials if it would be beneficial to engineering or to cost up by Gifford's property and the flood area. But on the lower block, we move forward with putting in the sidewalk on the property line and with consideration for preserving the trees. So using methods that will preserve the trees, cutting the roots instead of bulldozing through them, the methods that have been set forth to preserve them. And that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have a second.
When you say alternate material up by the Bauhaus, are you talking about like a bridge or something?
Yeah, if there needs to be like decking for the, instead of retaining walls, but that's engineering. That's not like political.
Right.
The engineer will tell us.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be concrete. It doesn't have to be retaining walls, be bridging.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Point of clarification, just quickly.
Mhm.
Is this to accept the grant of the UDOT?
Grant's been accepted. This is to continue with that, with the grant, as I understand. That's
Yeah.
Okay, just so we
to
understand.
continue to move forward with
Move forward
engineering.
with it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the historic study will be part
Right.
of that
That's already going to
checklist.
be part of the
It's already in the
I
grant.
don't think it hurts to be specific.
Okay, I'll add
No,
that
it's
to the
already
motion that the Historic Preservation Committee gets to review the project for historic relevance.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Did you say specialty excavation? I think you did, right?
Yeah, that they do
Which is
whatever
what
they
the
can
arborist
to save,
recommended, that if you're gonna excavate, that you do it with like a vac truck and you
and you cut and not,
cut roots with precision, not extraction. Like,
so we save the trees. We have addressed the historic preservation. We address the,
and historic
flood
preservation,
irrigation.
We're talking about the State Historic Society, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the motion going to die or do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So we have an arborist report from the Residents Commission.
We don't
but-
have an official
but we do
arborist
not-
report,
But we do not have,
but that's all part of engineering and what we're going to do.
well, I'm just asking if that's worth pausing for a second to see if there's any, would there be anything in that that would change our minds one way or the other as to what we see? I mean, that one,
Yeah, I would like the
value,
motion to be
but-
contingent on the arborist report being able to preserve the trees.
My understanding, the city's arborist, are they evaluating not only the root system of the tree, but also the actual condition of the trees? Because I know that the arborist report that the residents shared with the council, it did specifically say it did not take into account like the health of the tree, and that there were some bad pruning around utilities and different things within the trees. That it was mostly
That was the north section.
yeah, I'd have to revisit the arborist report to exactly see his language, but
But we do not have our official arborist report yet.
right. So is the scope of work for our arborist more expansive? That's my question. So what is the scope of our arborist's report that we're looking for?
I'll have to, some of that was coordinated with Rob, and I'll have to coordinate for the amount, but it was tree by tree evaluation of each tree along there, and to be able to evaluate that. So I don't have every detail of the scope with me.
Okay.
But we'll send it out, we'll distribute it out to the council. If there's concerns at that point, you can always bring it back up, if that's what you decide to do. Or we can have a condition of something. I mean, obviously,
And we still have bid awards and all kinds of things to go forward with
There's a
this,
lot of
right?
steps
There's
left
a
to
lot
this
more
project.
steps.
Stuff to do.
So we could put the brakes on if there were red flags flown at any point.
You're
But
welcome
we
to have
can, but we can move forward.
80% design or at PS&E or whatever level.
What's PSNE?
I don't know what it stands for, but it's after it's after 100% design. That's what they call it. That's what UDOT calls it. UDOT requires a PS&E level, and so we could bring it back when UDOT's done reviewing the project. Bring it back before we send it out to bid. That's basically.
Can I add that to the motion, or is that already part of the checklist? Like that it comes back to the council before we send it out to bid?
That's not part of the checklist.
Okay,
so
let's
you have
add that to the
amend.
motion, Ty.
We would.
So you're going to
Okay.
amend.
Contractor would
I'll
bring
amend
you.
it.
We generally bring back contract bid awards for you to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but that would,
but certainly. you
but
can
I
add
would
that
say
to
bring
the-
it back before we send it out for bid, not after we have bids awarded.
Before it goes out to bid.
Yeah, before it goes out to
bid.
bid.
Right.
Basically, we want to make sure we've got these ducks in a row before we go forward with it.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
you
and it's
put
gonna take
conditions
6 or
on
8
it,
months.
And we need to make sure that we got those conditions satisfied to the level we can and move. Then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We move forward with specific conditions. The conditions are that it goes to the Historic Preservation Committee for review, that it comes back to us before it goes out to bid,
The arborist.
and that the arborist report comes back in a favorable manner to saving the trees. So those are the 3 conditions
Okay,
on
so
moving forward.
Rather than saving the trees, you brought up the issue about the possibility of trees. Well, I don't know. That's probably not a good idea.
Some of the trees not having much longevity left.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there might
we
be
don't want
some
to save every tree because we don't know that.
No, we can't
We don't know that.
necessarily save every tree.
So the intent of this project would be to save the trees.
Yeah.
But we might not be able to save 100%.
Maybe not 100%.
Does this lock it in on the property line? Or are there
I
still,
believe that's the property line was the motion.
right?
Yes.
I mean, are there opportunities down the road from moving forward to bring it back off the property line? After this
I
point?
looked through neighboring cities. I looked through the county. I looked through our city. On the property line is,
It's the standard.
No, I was just
Is-
asking from
I-
this point moving forward, would there be opportunities
As far as
at
engineering,
70, 80, 90%?
I would
No?
say no.
Right,
if
'cause
we
we're gonna
start
move forward with
investing
engineering.
in the engineering,
Yeah.
we've put small amount of money into engineering now. That expands.
So you're locking it into the
and
property line?
Locking it because that's where the engineering,
Right.
the arborist, and all the.
Just
different
want to make
pieces
that
of-
clear
So,
that our minds up here are great minds.
If we put it on the
Great-
east side,
Greater than all the minds out there.
if we put it on the east side of the trees, you still got the same problem with the trees. You haven't circumvented the problem with the trees because you got roots going on all sides of the trees, and you could possibly affect that. And so consequently, I think what we are talking about is putting it on property line. That's my understanding.
Well, and Jeff's cynicism isn't really appreciated. Like, property line is the standard for the city, the state, the country, and the world. There was someone here from Denmark this week. We asked, where do you put your sidewalks? On the property line. Like, we're not trying to act superior. I mean, you don't need to be a jackass.
Oh, I'm not.
Okay. We, stop. We have a motion. We have an amended motion.
I'd like to hear if
Second?
possible,
Okay.
Nils, the rest of your thought, if you're willing to share where you were going with.
I don't remember what I was talking about.
She was just saying that
research.
it's a standard. She's looked at cities, she's looked at other cities. Everybody does it on the property line. That's the standard.
Where you were.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what
One of the other issues that's concerning is the location of utilities in some places, particularly power if it goes underground. And there is an issue with the relationship of sidewalk to power. That's standard in the building community.
Again, that will be taken care of by
And so
engineering.
we're not looking at, that's why it goes to property line.
Can I ask Ryan, with the movement of power poles, is that, I know the power company comes and does it, but is there a fee associated with the city on moving power poles, or?
The city project, the power company moves at their expense. If it is a non-city if it's a city project, the power company moves at their expense. That's part of our franchise agreement. That's kind of what it is. We're not,
So the power company pays for that?
correct.
It's pretty pricey if they don't.
I would just like to have the motion read back to make sure all of the.
I'm gonna have to listen to it on the audio unless someone wants to repeat it. I've got it down.
Go ahead.
Carrie can repeat it.
I'll
Carrie can repeat
Oh,
it.
Ryan.
To try. I've tried to take the notes here. I believe your motion, and Carrie, correct me if I read this back incorrectly.
The amended motion? is what
The
you're doing?
motion as it stands
Okay.
Is to move forward with the sidewalk along the property line. Consider alternate methods of material on the south end by the Boz. Consider methods to preserve the trees in the engineering design. Consult with the State Historic Preservation Society, and before it goes out to bid, come back, bring it back to the council, and include the arborist report as that. So we bring back the arborist report, the engineering report before it goes out to bid. Is that close enough, or you want to
Decision
modify?
points.
Yeah, I think so.
Could-
Is that,
Is it specific enough to say alternate building materials at the Boz, or do you have to list an address or list like
We know where the
from,
property of the Boz is at.
Right, but I didn't know if it was like that whole block
yeah, just that flood area,
from Second to Third South.
yeah, just
that
say
area.
from Second to Third.
To consider that. And the placement, whether on the east side or the west side, I mean, I didn't think about that. I'm not really sure if if the earthwork required to put in retaining on the west side or mitigate driveways on the east side.
It's huge. The
Well,
differences.
I know
You're talking the
both of them are
street.
significant projects.
The
They're
street.
both significant projects, but I'm not really sure if one outweighs the other as far as in like cost savings or in I don't know if
We would have to go for
They
a
said
different
it's
grant.
side
look at both sides of those and see which one
We got site
is-
specific in our city.
is best.
We'd have to go
Well,
for
I
a
mean,
different grant.
UDOT says, I don't know if that's true. UDOT says it has to serve the same people that it was written for. And I think the side of the road allows for that flexibility.
I thought I asked that question, and I thought I was
We,
told
we
it
would,
was site specific.
the application is site specific. We've asked if there's any flexibility. The flexibility is that they may consider, and they would take it out to review it by the same committee that awarded it to see, but if it served the same one, that there possibly could be consideration. But at that point, I would say that it's not assured, and it would go back to the judgment body to see if they would do that or not.
So how would we even ask that as we're proceeding forth in engineering design?
We'd need to offer them a plan that would show alternate. But I would tell you, cutting and sloping that back, if we cut and sloped the east side of the road along that property line, cutting and sloping and regrading all that property, we'd have to regrade into their property and get agreements from each one of them to grade and redo each of the landscaping and property to slope back to that sidewalk. On the west side, fill is much easier to fill in than to cut. It just that's just building material wise. It's easier to fill than to cut. It's easier to balance too.
I'd like to make
Okay.
one more comment. You mentioned the state historical. I think we ought to include our local historical, because they actually, if they have challenges with it, would include the state. I talked with Wes specifically about that. Yes, Scarlett. It has to go to the state.
That's correct.
So would we bypass our local ones? I think it'd be good to include them. They're involved in our community. I think we ought to.
Sure,
My
then we're
my
not the all-knowing
understanding-
body. So include in that motion that it will be looked at by the local historic preservation
By the
committee.
Providence Historic
Yeah.
Preservation
Actually,
Commission.
according to our city code, I think they have to send their evaluation of their resources
to the state.
to the state.
It says right here.
I think that's what 2-3-3D is in Providence City Code. And then in the state code, it says the agency with the issue presents that. And I think that's established in our code is the Historic Preservation Committee would write that up
I think
to
it
the
is
state.
too.
That's my understanding. I could be wrong.
Yeah, then it's the opinion of 7 more people in the city and not just the 5 of us.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Are you satisfied with your motion? We need a second.
I did second it.
Not the amended one.
Oh. I think we've covered everything. I think we've covered
so.
all the pieces in it.
Okay, so you're
Second.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay. Staff reports.
You want me to go?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will just tell you that Ryan will be giving the staff report for Rob. Rob is so busy, and the last time he was here till 10:30 at night. He'd been up all night with a water break, and Ryan is going to do his report.
All right, I'll cover and anything I don't, if we want to add, I think Ty has covered his. Is that correct? And I think Scarlett, do you have much more to cover? Okay, so I'm going to wrap up staff reports as a group, if that's all right. I'll give a minute to let him go. Although I'm really not a perfect speaker, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
We'll listen. We're not allowed to.
Thank you. All right. So anyway, a few of the things, we have gotten a new grant to do a tree inventory for our city in working towards understanding our urban forest. And so we're going to work towards that possibility. Okay. At that point, we also have a skate park that is nearing completion. It's proceeding nicely. If you haven't seen it, it's there on First North by Spring Creek. And the shade structure is in. A lot of that is going in. And you'll just leave it cracked just slightly. So if somebody wants
It's
to.
just too
come back,
noisy.
That'd be great. So we're having that go in. It's looking really good. If you haven't, hopefully all of you are getting your skateboards or roller skates out so that you're prepared and ready, because we're gonna see if you'll
I hope
participate.
they're
in
putting
our-
down lots of foam rubber for me.
I'll tell you, I was there today, and I was nervous just walking along the edge. I can't imagine skateboarding up the hill.
Those guys have done
But
a
it is
fantastic
so
job. though.
fabulous. It is going to be a wonderful
Watching
addition.
them, it looks like a lot of fun. I wish I was younger and more agile that way.
You are not
because
allowed on the
I
course.
think it would be a lot of fun. So anyway, our 100 East water drainage or that project along 100 East on the east side, we are working on trying to resolve the water that has been seeping into the road, and work on connecting that and piping that. So we've cut that tree line out. We do have somebody that has been working there to be able to put in that pipeline. So the road is closed. We're putting that in, trying to address water drainage early, and there's a lot of springs and a lot of issues up there, but we're trying to do that. Ultimately, that we look to connect that as part of our stormwater and spring water to Second South, and then connect that on down, so that we'll also use that pipeline to drain our wells when we have to flush them. So there's multiple reasons why we're putting in this pipeline project that we've got, and it was budgeted, and so it is a planned budgeted project that's going in. The water well, we're drilling our permanent well up there by the Dew tank, and we're making progress. So anyway, if you haven't been up there, haven't seen that drilling rig, it's kind of a good sight to see.
It's massive.
Yes. We have put a focus, as we're wrapping up, we have put a focus to try to do some of the street sweeping. So you should see that in various areas of town. The Brager Park Playground is the designs coming along. We've got some great public feedback, and we put out a few designs. So we're working on getting to that project. The project along Canyon Road, the sidewalk there, and the drainage issue that's right up there by as you come up the Dugway, but before you get to the church there, we're putting in we should be putting in that sidewalk and curb and gutter within the next couple of weeks is when they'll start. Fox Ridge, we've got a contract there, and we're working with that contractor to finish fixing that road after the water leak. Fiber, we continue to have our subscriptions increase. Gateway and Vineyard, both of those should be online by in the next week or so, and so we're making progress, continuing to expand. We've just installed GPS tracking on our garbage trucks so that we can
It's pretty cool.
help increase that efficiency and watch. And then also, if we have complaints or that, we can verify some of that and work with our contractor on how we make some improvements. So anyway, those are a list of things we're working on, a lot of to try to keep improvement and build and grow the city and do it in a manner that is pleasing to you and to the public. So that's my report. We do have baseball that's going, flag football that's currently going on. So we do have good recreation programs. The car show. Car show is coming up.
When is that?
Yeah,
October 12th, and it'll be on the west side of the park, east parking lot of the school. So
Where it's always been? Okay.
live music, and we will be supporting Little Lambs. They'll be there again this year. So
October 12th, starts at what time?
10 to 2, I think, is what it is.
Okay.
and if you haven't had an opportunity to attend that one,
It's a great one.
event. I do think that's a really good event. We have a good band. It's one that we've had in several years now. They do a really good job for being lawyers. So, but I'm not ready to get a band together for accountants. So, anyway, is there any questions or anything I can help you with? Okay. Well, we're going to get out by 10 o'clock, I hope then. All right.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks to all
Mayor,
the staff. You work
Mayor,
so
I have
hard.
a
Yes.
question for you.
Yes.
For this diaper thing, we've taken on as a support for it. Is there any communication going out to the citizens to contribute, to participate?
We've done it on social media, and we did put it in our newsletter. I think it will go out in social media again.
Okay.
Has been out again, so we've done it twice.
And where do you make the contribution to them directly?
Little Lambs, yes.
Directly, okay.
Yeah, we don't want to get in the middle of that.
All right.
I've taken, you can either do a monetary donation to them, or you can even just take down
Some
product.
boxes of.
Yeah, I've taken stuff.
They
down
do a
there.
lot of things. Formula. I mean, if you went and bought
Are
some
they
formula,
still over
that's
here
really
on Main
expensive.
Street, kind of where the food?
They are between the jail and Joan Simpkins. There's kind of a,
10th
kind
West.
of a.
In
it's-
that complex
it's
back in there?
west of 10th West.
Okay, yeah.
So if you if you look at
East of
where
the
Joan
jail.
Simpkins is,
Yeah, okay,
and then the
next to it.
jail, they're right in between there. And if you, it's kind of a U-shaped
Yeah,
little
yeah, I'm
shopping
familiar
center
with it,
sort of
yes.
thing, and they're at the very end.
Okay.
But I can forward the number, and you can coordinate with them.
Okay.
They've also got this Venmo link in their pamphlet that makes
Oh,
if you
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Didn't look at that. Great.
through those channels.
People can't go to work if they don't have diapers for their children, because daycare will not take children without
Very good.
diapers.
Yeah.
So it's great. Scarlett, do you have any report?
The only thing I wanted to remind you about was the car show, and Ryan took care of all that, so.
Cool. Ty? Oh, we had your report earlier, right? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.